ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
As we kick off on a Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, live video over at YouTube and Twitter. We have a ton to dive into as we start off on a Tuesday. Of course, week 2 in the NFL is in the books. We had the Green Bay Packers beat the Lions last night in a pretty entertaining first half, not so much in the second half of that game. We had the Phillies lose pretty poorly, actually, 2-0 to a team that hasn't had 50 wins yet this season. They get shut out by the Baltimore Orioles, O's and Natty Bows. 0 runs for the Phils against said Orioles. They fall 3 back in the wild card race. It is Dallas week. We get ready for the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. We have plenty of coverage today for week 2, week 3, looking forward, looking back, look ahead. We've got it all for you here right now on the Sports Bash. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show, you out there. But really, I guess we have to start with, I don't want to say a bombshell, because we kind of have been prepared for something of this sort to happen here soon. But the news today from Adrian Wojnarowski, as Sixers camp is set to start 1 week from today. The Sixers will open camp 1 week from today. And Adrian Wojnarowski reports that Ben Simmons will not report for the opening of training camp. And in fact, he intends to never play another game for the Philadelphia 76ers. So as we kind of realize, he wants out, he wants a trade. There was some talk that the Sixers do intend to try to talk him back into this. Well, today they came over the top. There was a report yesterday or earlier this morning that essentially said, look, the Sixers are going to try to work this thing out. They want to try to talk to him. They want to try to work this out. They want to try to have him come back. They want to try to convince Ben Simmons to report. There was a report last week that essentially said eventually they think he's going to show up. Well, they went to the biggest of big NBA people and said to Woj, you tell them I never intend on playing a game again. So all the reports that have kind of been out there, oh, they hope to get him back. They think he's going to report. They're waiting for this. They want to talk to that. He went to Woj and said, you tell them I am not playing another game for the Philadelphia 76ers. Jay Williams, KJM, said this. Right, there you go, right there. He talked to Rich Paul. Rich Paul says, I will play, or Ben Simmons will play anywhere but Philadelphia. Anywhere but Philadelphia. So these reports that he doesn't want to play in Minnesota, he doesn't want to play in Cleveland, doesn't want to play in Sacramento. At this point, he has said, he has told his people, Rich Paul, his agent, has told at least Jay Williams. Jason Williams says, Rich Paul says he will play anywhere but Philadelphia. So this is just happening all right now. Ben Simmons will not report to the 76ers training camp next week. He says he has no intention of ever playing for the Philadelphia 76ers again. So how did we get to this part? All right, we all know. Obviously, the fracture between Simmons and the organization stems from apparently going back to, there are some reports that are coming in that essentially suggest that when Simmons was named as part of the trade for James Harden, that trade had to be signed off on by everybody. And when we say everyone, that means Joel Embiid. So the context that we're looking at here is that all the key decision makers inside the Philadelphia 76ers front office. Guys like Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, and then the ownership group. They had signed off on a Ben Simmons, James Harden trade, and that would include Joel Embiid saying, go ahead, make the trade. Ben was informed, this according to Jason Dumas, by the organization that he was likely being traded. It never happened. And then both sides kind of went on their merry way. The point of contention, as it pertains to the situation per Jason Dumas, is the situation is fluid, but that he has no interest in playing another game as a Philadelphia 76ers. And he goes so far as to say that he is well aware, this being Ben Simmons, of how Sixers fans feel about him. So a lot of this stemming from Ben Simmons feeling like, hey, the organization tried to trade me. They couldn't trade me. And then at the end of the year, they kind of threw me under the bus. There's a lot to unpack here, man. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 on the text board. If you have the free mobile app, download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play and hit us up through the Message Us button on the app. And then, of course, if you're watching the show live over on YouTube, check that out as well. So there's a lot to unpack here, as we said. One, Ben Simmons essentially says he never intends to play another game for the Philadelphia 76ers. Here's the thing. The ramifications of Ben Simmons not playing if they can't find a trade for him. Now, according to Woj, he understands the ramifications that he might get fined and he might not play anywhere. The Sixers do have the power to say, look, we'll just sit you out. Here's the problem. Do the Sixers feel that they're going to be good enough by having Ben Simmons sit out and get nothing in return for him just to prove a point? Look, they wanted to try to encourage him to come back and play. Ben Simmons is not doing himself any favors right now. So according to Woj, Simmons won't report. He intends not to play. He hasn't spoken to the team. Now, this is going back to August, apparently, that they did have a conversation, and he told the Sixers management his plan that he does not intend to show up for training camp. As it is explained in the reporting, he is aware of the penalties that he could face as a result of not attending Sixers camp next Tuesday, including fines, a suspension. But according to Adrian Wojnarowski, Ben Simmons appears like he is going to play hardball with the team and will just sit the season out. He is owed $31 million this season. And despite that, think about the stance he is willing to take. He is essentially saying he has 4 years and $147 million. His leverage is somewhat limited here because the Sixers can just say to Ben Simmons, all right, you can go live a Hollywood lifestyle, but you ain't going to play basketball. They can hold on to him and do nothing with him and just keep finding him. This is where the stare down gets interesting. Now, obviously, Philadelphia feels like they have this asset on their team. They want him to play. But if he's not going to play and they're not going to get fair market value for him, how do they decide whether or not they just trade him for pennies on the dollar in their mind, probably not your mind, or do they just say, we'll hold on to him? If Simmons doesn't report, they can recoup all the money on his salary via fines. Now, the Sixers have been well prepared that Ben Simmons may not show up. However, it was reported last week by Tom Moore that many people thought he would eventually show up. He would eventually show up to the team because, quite frankly, he doesn't want to keep getting fined. We all know the asking price for Simmons has been extremely high. He's a 25-year-old. He has a pretty strong resume. and he's under contract for 4 more seasons. So the Sixers have gone into this all the way through. They do not want 50 cents on the dollar. I have maintained they would not trade him to be different. They would trade him to be better. So far, none of the trade offers that they have gotten in their mind make them a better basketball team. Now, if they were willing to just trade Ben Simmons for pennies on the dollar, they could trade him today. They could literally pick up the phone and say, are you ready to make that deal? Are you ready to make that offer? And Ben Simmons would be out of here. How would you guys out there? 609-403-0973. How would you guys play this? You know, I said this last week. I'm no Ben Simmons hater by any stretch of the imagination. I appreciate what he brings to the game. I understand he's not for everybody. That being said, he looks terrible in this situation. He looks absolutely so fragile and weak in this situation. It is sad that he has allowed it to get to this point. If you are Ben Simmons, you show up and show them. Everybody's questioning whether or not I've worked on my game. Let me show you what I've done. But he is afraid to show up to even show them because, quite frankly, I think he knows the answer. He knows that nothing has changed, and that's on him. This isn't me saying I have changed on Ben Simmons. I appreciate Ben Simmons. But this is all on him. He has brought this to himself. He has no way out of this mess. Now, the mess he can get out of it is he wants to play hardball. And you know what? I hope for the Sixers' sake that they don't just trade him to get him out of here. I hope they make him sit in misery. And that means the team might not be good enough. Guess what? This guy deserves to sit on his ass and have to watch. He deserves to have to put his tail between his legs and maybe say, you know what? If you're not going to trade me, I really want to play. I'm going to come back. And then if I'm the Sixers, guess what? Who knows? They might be doing pretty well without him. At that point, you say, guess what, buddy? Sorry, you're going to have to sit out more. Now you're going to have to earn your playing time. Because before, we handed you playing time. We did everything for this guy. And this is the way that you're going to come to us? If I'm the Sixers, yeah, he holds some of the cards. But his leverage to me is limited if I am willing to play hardball and dig my heels in. Which, guess what? I have Joel Embiid on my team. I think I can win 50 games with Joel Embiid and figure out something else along the way. I'd make him sit there and rot and find his ass over and over and over until he sticks his tail between his legs with his agent, and he probably doesn't even have the cojones to say it himself. He has to send his agent over there and have his agent say, you know what? Ben has changed his mind. He would like to come back and play. And only at that point would I say, we might be willing to bring him back, but is he willing to change his game? That's where it should get to at this point. How dare Ben Simmons say to this organization that he will not report and that he never intends to play again? Who does he think he is? I get it. Look, and I appreciate Ben Simmons, but this here is small, man. This is weak. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Jalen checks in. Exactly, Mike. Play hardball back. If there was a great trade out there, take it, but that's doubtful at this point. Yeah, guess what? If I'm the Sixers, and I get it, they're in a tough spot. They think they have a player in Joel Embiid that they are ready to win a championship with. But if you just feel like you're trading Ben Simmons just to trade him, I'd prove the point and say, guess what, dude? We're going to sit here and make you rot this out. 4 years on your contract. 4. We're going to fine you, and we're going to have you sit there and rot. That's how I'd play it. And that might not be the best for the organization, but guess what? Sometimes it's worth proving the point. Joel Embiid, you can win 50 games with Joel Embiid. Will you win a championship with just Joel Embiid? Probably not. Probably not. But I don't know that you make a trade for Ben Simmons and the guy that you get back in that trade is going to help you win a championship either. Right? Lot of messages coming in. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Hit me up on the text board. Hit me up on the free mobile app. Nick from Brigantine says, Mike, I tell him to grow up. You signed a contract for top dollar, get back to work, and improve your game. Well, that kind of technique doesn't really work, Nick, but it's a good it's a good thought. Here's the thing I'd say. Look, if I'm the Sixers, I might have to swallow my own pride too and just say, look, just going to let this guy rot. I'm just going to let him sit out. Sorry. We tried to trade him. Your value isn't good enough. We don't have an offer that we find to be good enough. If you want to play and you want to change your mind, you're going to have to come back to us and apologize. You're going to have to come to us. Tim from Millville. Hey, Mike, do you think Simmons' trade value goes down if they sit him to the trade deadline? I'd sit on him till then. You know what, Tim? That's a great question. Michael Kasky-Blomain from CBS Sports at 325 today covers the NBA and the Sixers. Look, it can't hurt if you just have him sit there and somewhere there's a team that has an injury, somewhere there's a team that has, they think they're one player short. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? And if Ben Simmons is just sitting out and hasn't played a game since whenever the Sixers were in the playoffs, and there's a team that feels like they're one player away, maybe him sitting out and not playing at all adds to the intrigue of, I wonder if he did do anything this offseason. I wonder if he did improve his game. Him not showing up tells me the answer to that question. Either that, or he wants to be the ultimate troll and go somewhere else and all of a sudden show an improved jump shot, free throw shot, three-point shot, etc., etc. My money is on the former than the latter. My money would suggest he knows he is not coming into training camp on Tuesday with a new wrinkle in his game. And he does not want to have to go back out on that court if he knows he doesn't have the extra sauce. So he'd rather go someplace else and start new and have a new fan base kind of say, hey, Ben, until they get tired of it. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Hit me up on the free mobile app if you're watching the show live. Jason Goldstein is watching the show on YouTube. I love Sixers fans. Oh, we can win without you, but you don't want to move him for assets. No one views him as a star, but delusion or fixed Sixers fans and the team. All right, let's dive into this one here. Oh, we can win without you. Jason, I clearly just said they're not winning a championship without Ben Simmons. So obviously you're not listening. They're not winning without Ben Simmons. And if they make a trade that it's on the table for Ben Simmons, they're not winning with that trade. You're not trading Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum and winning a championship with that. So nobody said we can win without you. In fact, I clearly said they're not winning a championship without him. They could probably win 50 games without Ben Simmons. You have Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris. Maxey probably develops his game a little bit more. You probably win 50 games, 47 games, 45 games, somewhere in that range. You're going to make the playoffs with Joel Embiid. But, Jason, I again inform you, I just clearly said they are not winning a championship without Ben Simmons. What I also said was the trades that are currently on the table are not helping them win a World Series. A NBA championship. Do I want to move him for assets? Sure. Do I want to just trade him to say, hey, I got rid of him and I fed into him? At this point, I would rather prove the point, right? I'd rather say you are under contract for 4 years here in Philadelphia. We do not have a offer that is acceptable because we value you. You're sitting here saying we don't value you. Here, we're telling you we value you because look at what we're asking for to get rid of you. That's the difference. The Sixers are telling him we value you. We want X, Y, and Z and more to trade you because that's what we think of you. So nobody is saying, well, Jason, I am not saying the Sixers can win without him. They need him on this team. They need him or somebody better. They don't need somebody different. They need him or somebody better. That's what they need. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Mike, someone has to knock the sports agents down a notch. Time for the league to take the league back. Hey, look, the Sixers can step up right now, right? The Sixers can step up right now and say this all ends. You're not going to dictate to us, hey, you don't want to be here anymore? You sign that contract. Rich Paul, you sign that contract. Now you're going to come back to us with 4 years left on that deal and say your client doesn't intend to play for us? Well, guess what, Rich Paul? You better get in your client's ear and get his ass back to training camp. And I get it. These agents run the league and all that good jazz. Guess what? I got news for you. Rich Paul is not helping any free agent come to Philadelphia. Rich Paul is not helping whatever superstar client he has come to Philadelphia. His client is Ben Simmons. The only thing Rich Paul's helping is getting him out of Philadelphia. So the Sixers can just essentially say, guess what? Rich Paul, you have one team now that you don't have to deal with anymore. So whatever clients you have, which essentially are what? LeBron James, Ben Simmons, those guys aren't playing in Philadelphia anyway. 609-403-0973. Mike, the problem with playing hardball and letting them sit out will be that in the future, no all-star will want to sign with the team. Well, guess what? Give me an all-star that has decided to sign with the team. There's no all-star signing in Philadelphia. That's been one of the problems the whole time. That's the league. These all-star players aren't signing to play in Philadelphia. So guess what, Rich Paul? You want to take your all-stars? You're not bringing them here anyway, so I don't need you. And your all-star can sit and rot here for 4 years, and I'll keep finding them so that you don't get your commission. See how that works out for you. Call Jenkins for heating and air conditioning installation service, maintenance, plumbing, or drain cleaning service, 609-641-6440 or jenkinsplumbingheating.com. That's how we start today off. Your text messages continue. Your messages on the free mobile app continue. Your video comments continue. Keep them coming. The news today from Woj reporting Ben Simmons will not report for the opening of training camp next week. He intends to never play another game for the franchise. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, 229 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I want to hear from you, and let me know. I know most of you are fed up with Ben Simmons, so it's not like I need you to tell me that. But when you hear him say he never intends to play again, are you pro trading him for pennies on the dollar? Now, here's the problem. Most of you don't feel like they're getting pennies on the dollar because you don't value Simmons. That's what makes this is kind of tough, right? Couple text messages. Brian in EHC. The window is too small to win a championship to play this cat and mouse game. Offer Ben for John Wall and a first-round pick. Get rid of the headache and focus on what you need to get a ring. Well, Brian, here's the problem. Ben Simmons doesn't make enough money to trade for John Wall and a first-round pick. You'd be giving up Ben Simmons and a player to get John Wall. And a lot of people think that player is Tyrese Maxey or Matisse Thybulle. And guess what? John Wall, I don't want John Wall. That's me just trading Ben Simmons for a guy who's broken down, hasn't won a playoff series. I don't want John Wall. I would rather him sit and rot. And at this point, guess what? I have appreciated Ben Simmons. He has now got me to turn on him. Now, I haven't turned on his game as much as his actions. If he's gotten to the point where I now have to rip him, you guys are probably driving off the road out there, I would imagine. Mike Simmons is the poster boy of the AAU generation. He's been told he's the greatest thing ever since he was probably 14. Now he gets to the league and he's not even the best on his team. He doesn't want to work, and paying him the max so early was a mistake. I'd find him $250G a day and let him rot. That's from Pete in Vineland. So you would let him rot. I feel like unless I'm getting a trade that I feel comfortable with, I'd make him rot, man. Right? 609-403-0973. Mike, you can't waste JoJo's prime. Don't play the drama with Ben. They need to get this drama out of Philly. Get rid of Ben today. There's another take. Another one is, Mike, the Sixers have to end this circus and trade Simmons now. Take the L on the trade and move on. It will be a circus every day if he sits. The players will be hounded with questions and will be too big of a distraction. We cannot waste any more of Embiid's prime. Look, I'm not saying that's the right or wrong way to play it. I'm just saying if I don't get what I want in a trade, I would rather him just sit out, right? And maybe somebody calls me and then they panic and say, all right, what do we need to give you to get Simmons? Our team is right there. We feel like we need a defensive stopper. We feel like we need a guy, to play defense against this wing. Let's see. What's a team that might be, kind of right on the precipice of winning a championship? The Denver Nuggets. We're right there. We just need a wing defender. The Utah Jazz. We just need a wing defender. Somebody that really feels like they need that one guy right there. 609-403-0973. Let me talk to Joe in Summers Point. Joe, you're on 97.3. What's up, Joe?
Hey, this is how I would handle it. I send an email to the agent saying, Ben has to report to practice or he'll be fined, period. I have good news, though. I have a shooting coach that will work with him at a great bonus to him, period. That's it. And let them sit on that. Don't call the agent. Don't invite them in the office. Send them the email, and that's it. Let them stew. Let them figure out where the Sixers' head is.
Yeah.
The Sixers keep treating him like a prima donna, like he's been treated, like all these players have been treated all their lives. They're going to be stuck with a prima donna. So let's get real here. Let's get tough. Let's do a little red Auerbach on them. All right? That's it.
Joe, I don't have a problem with what you said.
He shows up.
I don't have a problem with that technique right there. I'll play hardball just like him. We have 4 years and $147 million left on his contract. We expect him to be here Tuesday. We'll even provide a shooting coach for him. How's that?
That's perfect.
There
Perfect.
You go.
And if he doesn't show up, you fine him.
That's right.
And every single day, he fines him.
And Joe, I appreciate the call, man. I have zero issue with that take. And look, I get it. There's more ways to skin this cat. I'm just saying, in my mind, if I'm the Sixers At what point can I be the poster child for the league? And I say, I'm the one who's going to step up and change the culture of this league. I'm not going to have a guy with 4 years, $147 million. Look, James Harden was on the last year of his deal. Ben Simmons has 4 years and $147 million left on his contract. He is getting paid $33 million this year. He understands the potential implications of sitting out. Great. Well, then let him find out what those implications are. They will fine him considerable money every single day, and I'd be all for it. All for it. 609-403-0973. Tom in Summers Point. What's going on, Tommy?
Michael. Hey, Mike, Ben Simmons proclaims to be a superstar, gets paid like a superstar. So here's what a superstar would do. A true superstar that wants to play basketball. You come out and you say, if Ben Simmons did this, then guess what? He could come back and play in Philly. You know what? You're right. I need to work on my game. I need to work on my foul shooting. You know what? I'm going to start shooting jumpers. I don't know what he says, Mike, but you come out and you say that. And then you earn respect. How can you respect him? Mike, he can never play another day in Philly. I'm sorry. He can't. Because the fans, if the fans are real fans, they're not going to – I wouldn't support him, Mike. I would boo him until – you know what?
Well,
because
the problem is, Tom, I think he understands. I think he has he has stared at himself in the mirror and has understood his act is up. And if he shows up here without any new wrinkles to his game, he knows what's coming to him. That's why he wants out.
Mike, I don't think he does understand, because if he did understand, he would come out and say something. Listen, I'm going to work as hard as I can to become the basketball player that I'm getting paid to be. End of story, Mike. And you know what? I'm a business owner and I run a business. You know what? I would respect him. I have no respect for him, Mike. I can't spend 10 cents on the Sixers if they're going to pay that stiff, because you know what? No. Who's he think he is, Mike? He thinks he's LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. Who does he think he is, Mike? He has no – Mike, I don't care how good he is defensively and he distributes the ball. He has no offensive game. And if you saw in a playoff, you need to score points. He doesn't – and I really think that's why Jimmy Butler left, Mike, because he saw that he's a dog.
Well, Tom, and I appreciate it, man. I got to roll. I'll tell you this. I don't care the fact that he doesn't score as much as people want him to do. That's not what bothers me. It's the fact that he has chosen this route. He has made the choice to go down this route, and that has turned me off a little bit. I'm not judging his game. I'm not sitting here criticizing his game. Does he have shortcomings in his game? Yes, he certainly does. Is he the player, the superstar that the fans want him to be? No, he is not. But there are more ways to be a superstar than just scoring, okay? I don't have the mentality of John Wall scores a lot. He's not a superstar, right? John Wall scores at will at times. He is not a superstar. It's not all about scoring. This Sixers team is who they are because of what Ben Simmons brings them. The problem is he doesn't bring it to them in the playoffs. If he is the Ben Simmons you get during the regular season, you win with that guy. The guy you get in the playoffs, you can't win with that guy. I can acknowledge that. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. A lot to do. Phillies last night. Awful. An awful loss. Keep the text messages coming on Ben Simmons. Michael Kasky-Blomain joins me next hour. 609-403-0973. Download the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can play golf with Pete Thompson and I and an LPGA professional in this year's Pro-Am. Enter right now on our website, 973ESPN.com. We'll announce the winner on Friday's edition of Happy Hour Friday with the PT. All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. The free mobile app gives you a chance to enter to play golf with Pete Thompson and I in this year's LPGA Pro-Am. All you need to do is go to our website, 973ESPN.com, and all the details on how to sign up are right there. Check it out right now over at 973ESPN.com. Get the free mobile app. You can message us through the app. I see Mike in Summers Point. I got your messages. I will read all some of those. I got more text messages. And right now, from one misery to another, the Phillies last night, O's and Natty Bows is what they say in Baltimore. And O's were on the board last night for the Phils. In fact, 9 of them, Frank Close, 97.3. ESPN.com Phillies Insider as this week's mailbag. But, man, last night, a discouraging loss, and Atlanta wins this whole, well, you got this schedule, and they got that schedule. I like what John Kruk said before the game. I don't care who's on the schedule. If you're not winning against these teams, why should I believe in you? And he said, look, you can't go in thinking 5 out of 7 or this out of that. You got to win tonight, and they couldn't get the job done. And tonight, Ranger Suarez pitched pretty well, Frank.
Yeah, also pitching well, John Means. John Means, by the way, is one of the best pitchers in baseball that nobody has ever heard of. So I think
WVU, man.
Kruk actually said this as well. It's one thing to face a team and say, well, they're a 40-win team. But at the end of the day, it's the Phillies facing a really good pitcher in John Means. I mean, think back to Phillies-wise, like 1997, Curt Schilling went like 17-10. They had nothing else besides Curt Schilling, or even further back, Steve Carlton winning 27 of the 54 wins back in 1972 or something like that. But you're often only as good as the pitcher you face. Now, you expected the Phillies not to hit a lot off of John Means. Unfortunately, Ranger Suarez gives them a solid performance, 6 innings, 2 earned runs, and unfortunately, that was too much to overcome against the Orioles.
Right, and then, that's just where it gets disheartening. You get up 2 runs in the game, and then you shut them down. You get nothing going offensively, and now you have a bullpen game today. This is, again, where these bullpen games really bring the team down, and it has had a kind of a residual effect. They've won the bullpen games. The problem is the residual effect is costing them the other games.
Exactly, and I've tweeted this before. They might have mustered through a bullpen game. In fact, that blowout they had last week, Hector Neris did pitch the middle innings before it was, out of control. Ended up being 15-8 at the end. But Hector Neris not available the next day. You look at the day before last. We see that the game was just Cam Bedrosian was the only reliever used, right? So after Gibson. So when that happens, your guys aren't available. And then it really does have a trickle-down effect. At least the good news is it seems like everybody is on deck tonight pretty much in this Phillies bullpen, and we'll have to see what happens.
Close, 97.3 ESPN.com. What's the loss last night do? Atlanta wins. You're now 3 back. I know you still have Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and they still have a San Diego series. They're in Arizona right now. But how debilitating was that loss last night?
I think if you're going to lose one game, it's going to be the John Means game. I hate to keep coming back to that because, they still did face the bullpen for a couple innings. But you know what? If John Means pitched the day before, you'd feel a lot better about that Baltimore series. But there's the Phillies should win on paper, except we've seen the problem is the Phillies have been unable to execute. And like you said, if they get through today with a win, the bullpen does well. And then you have some guys not available tomorrow because Archie Bradley pitched last night, for example. Maybe he's not available the next day. Well, then they're at a disadvantage tomorrow. So this is a tough one. The team can't take anything for granted. They need to take every opportunity to score runs. At the end of the day, they have to execute. We've been talking about the schedule for literally months almost, it feels like, Mike. And at the end of the day, they have to execute, and they have to execute without Zach Eflin, and without Rhys Hoskins. And you can see just how badly that affects the team headed down the stretch.
12 games left, 3 games back. They have 12 left to go, including 3 against the Braves. That will be coming up in 2 weeks from now. They have 2 more against Baltimore, 4 against Pittsburgh before they play Atlanta. They have to be within striking distance because they close the season off against the Marlins, and that typically you can't depend on having to play the Marlins and needing those wins. You need to at least be tied or maybe even ahead after that Braves series. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, you really do. Part of the problem is, you would hope they would pick up a game when the Braves were facing the Giants. The Giants do not have the competition. Excuse me, the Braves don't have the competition they had like the Giants in Arizona. So you really have to make sure that you at least win enough of these games in these 2 series against the Orioles and the Pirates that you can pick up. Now you're going to need to pick up a game or two again before you come around and get to the Braves. So that's part of the problem here is you really need to pick up some games before that Braves series as well.
How about this question from John in the mailbag? It really puts on the light with 12 games left and you're this close to the wild card and this close to first place. How can you not look at the blown saves, 34, and wonder what could have been?
So I really broke down who blew what. Now, there's a few things I want to point out with this, right? Because automatically you think of the closer when you think of blown saves. Now, Hector Neris did blow 6 as the closer. He had that hard luck blown save a week ago when he came in with 2 runners on at second and third and got them out of a tough. I thought he did a good job in that inning and keeping out further trouble. But really, it's kind of spread around the middle relievers, and to me, that makes me think of 2 things that are beyond just the number of blown saves. First, it's the offense, right? The offense is not scoring a lot of runs early, and when the Phillies don't take leads, that means the margin is razor thin for anybody that comes in. So if you look around the list, then the numbers of people that have blown saves, even Ranger Suarez has 3 blown saves. Connor Brogdon 4. Sam Coonrod, Archie Bradley, Jose Alvarado also have 3. So does Ian Kennedy as a Philly. Of course, he's a recent guy. Brandon Kinsler, Enyel De Los Santos, David Hale, Neftali Feliz, all goes back to that coming in with razor thin margins. You want more out of the offense, and you also need more out of the starting pitching. So bullpen game right now, the reason why the Phillies were willing to give up on Vince Velasquez is they didn't think the bullpen game was any worse than Vince Velasquez. But for all the games, they trotted out Vince Velasquez and Spencer Howard and Matt Moore and Chase Anderson, and they departed the games early. The bullpen has that many more innings to try to keep the team in the game. So, all this is a perfect storm that leads to these blown saves. It's not just the back end just coming in and blowing a lead. A lot of this is all these other problems that the Phillies are having right now. So that's a major roster construction issue. It's not something that can be simply blamed on the bullpen even now when you consider all these other factors. They need to get some starters that go deeper into the games, and they need to get the offense going so that they have more of a lead, that the relievers aren't all coming in with a 1-run lead and kind of living on the edge, so to speak.
All right, a couple questions about the kind of the future here. Rich wants to know, what are the odds on the Phillies trying to sell high after Gene Segura's big year here?
Well, I think we know that the Phillies need to improve their offense and their defense in the infield. Segura, of course, was the one that was giving them both. But I would say right now I would not rule out trading him. But at the same time, I don't think the Phillies need to look to trade him to get value. I think they need to totally reconstruct this whole infield and also address center field and left field. Small task, right? So I think everything's on the table right now. If the Phillies can bring in some pieces that are good defensive options in the infield, they'll do it. Could mean that he is shipped out just because they can get good value in return, but then they got to bring some other players in. So it's going to be a really interesting offseason. I think the Phillies are going to really find some players that can mix and match a little bit. I think Chris Bryant is going to be a tremendous fit if the Phillies can land him, if they can pay him the most money, because he can play third base, he can play some outfield, gives you some options there. And one name I would actually consider too is Cody Bellinger, who is rumored to be perhaps up for trade this offseason from the Dodgers. He hasn't had a good offensive year this year or last, really, but he can play a bunch of positions. So that, creating those options and creating some good defense, I think the Phillies will react accordingly at the end of the day. And I think one thing I would caution, Bryson Stott's their top prospect, will play either shortstop or second base. You don't want to just keep penciling these guys in and thinking they're going to solve the problem. Scott Kingery was going to solve the problem at second before. Alec Bohm was going to solve the problem at third. And right now, neither of them are really probably the long-term solution at either position. So I think we're going to see, as we saw before with Dave Dombrowski making those radical moves in the front office, I can see him making some radical moves on this Phillies lineup. So I'm just going to say buckle in and stay tuned and see what happens this offseason. I expect him to be busy.
So on that front, Van says, starting pitching, who are the top free agents? Center, left, third. It looks like, McCutchen, Odubel, third base, possibly shortstop, as you just kind of hinted at. There's going to be a lot of turnover here, it looks like.
Yeah, in fact, it looks like Van wants me to reconstruct the entire roster and the answer in one question. But I think that yeah, there are some free agents departing. Herrera and McCutcheon are going to open up center and left. That could be part of the solution. To if Alec Boehm ends up being an outfielder, for example, I think the Phillies really are going to focus on finding a good center fielder to get that defense up the middle. Didi Gregorius could be a sunk cost. It could, if his health is really what's doing this and his health isn't going to improve, they got to think long and hard about what to do with Didi Gregorius. But they've got some other money coming off the books. Velasquez, Moore, Anderson, Neris, Bradley. They got a lot to fill. Which is why I think this is going to be kind of a radical reimagining of this roster. I think Dave Dombrowski is really good, as we saw with Kyle Gibson. He's good at finding the names, and I said this ahead of the trade deadline. He's going to find the types that we don't expect, where there's a lot of value in the player. So I think I can see him picking up some names that right now we're not thinking of, that he's going to pick up. That's going to make a big difference. I'd like to see some depth. Tyler Anderson, the guy they almost traded for, would be good at the back end. But starting pitcher wise, there's a lot of guys that might be in the middle. Maybe they pay for Max Scherzer on a short-term deal. I don't know. I guess it all depends on the other moves. So I think this is just going to be a really busy offseason ahead.
And we only have about a minute though, Frank, but the questions that we're getting, they all seem to acknowledge that maybe this team's not making the playoffs. Is that what you're reading too?
I would say so. But you know what? I think this Phillies team going into this season, the best case scenario was they sneak into the playoffs. They still could sneak into the playoffs, but I think all along Dave Dombrowski knew the major work would be his first offseason, which really hasn't happened yet. He didn't join on until mid-December, when a lot of decisions were made. This offseason is going to be a busy one.
Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com. He answers your Phillies questions in the mailbag. Just about 3 weeks left to go in the season. The Phillies are 3 back with 12 to go. So razor thin margin of error at this point right now. And, of course, they are playing the Braves after they have a series with the Orioles. They have a 4-game set with Pittsburgh, and then they will play Atlanta. They are currently 3 back after losing 2 in a row. Atlanta has now won 2 in a row. There we go. All right, Frank, appreciate it, man.
Good to talk to you, Mike.
As always, Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com, covers the Phillies. He does a great job. His mailbag appears Tuesdays on 97.3 ESPN.com. You can always send in your mailbag questions. Tweet at Frank Close, and he will answer your question on an upcoming edition of the mailbag. Hey, don't forget, the LPGA is back, and Pete Thompson and I are looking for a 4th member of our foursome. Me, Pete, an LPGA professional, and you. How do you enter? Go to our website, 973ESPN.com. Right now, all the directions on what you need to do, it's pretty simple, are up. And we will announce the winning player who will play with us on Friday's edition of Happy Hour Friday. 3 o'clock here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget, you can go to our website, 973ESPN.com right now and enter to play golf with Pete Thompson and I in this year's LPGA Pro-Am. You'll play with a LPGA professional. I'm not very professional. I actually stink. Pete's not bad, but you can play with all of us on Wednesday the 29th in this year's Pro-Am. More details to sign up, go to 973ESPN.com. We got so much going on today. The man making you some cash, Jeff Nadeau, big man on campus. And he joins me right now here on a Sports Bash Tuesday as we like to look at some of the early lines. But I got to get Jeff Nadeau, who's probably giddy today, in that Ben Simmons has essentially said, I never intend on playing again for this team.
Good. See ya. I that's perfect music to my ears. I'm glad he said that. I was hoping that he was just going to report and everything was going to be hunky-dory, but yeah, good. See ya. I don't know why you don't do that. If that Wall trade's legitimate, I would have done it yesterday. I don't know what they're waiting on, but I'm glad. I'm happy about that.
So let me ask you this. A lot of people on this Wall trade, first off, the money doesn't match. So you'd have to send someone else. And some people are indicating you'd have to send a guy like Maxey or Thibault. So would you rather, A, ship Simmons out just to get him out, or B, fine his ass and just let him rot?
Yeah, I think that's probably what they will do. Does it set up to a situation? And actually, I shouldn't say it. Does it set up a situation? Not that Ben's never done anything off the court he shouldn't do, but you look at what Houston's doing with Watson. I mean, they're just not playing him.
Wall.
Or no, I'm saying with the Texans.
Oh yeah, Deshaun Watson.
He's just not playing. He's just there.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I said. Look, he's got 4 years left on his deal. He's making 30-some million. I just keep finding him. I mean, and at some point, maybe at the halfway point of the season, after him, like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Maybe there's a team that forgets what he did in the playoffs and says, the hell with it. We need a defender. We need someone who can defend on the wing. What do you want for this guy?
Yeah, I will say, and this is just something that I've heard through just people that I know, and for whatever reason, I know certain people that know this kind of stuff, but I've heard through the grapevine, John Wall off the court, little touchy from what I've understand. And I'm not going to go into details. I've heard things. I don't know if he's exactly someone I would want on this team. But
I'm not a big John Wall fan.
He's a great player, has a ton of potential. I just don't think he really loves basketball, probably.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's a losing player. Like, he's just a guy on the team. Like, people, like, this goes back to, and I don't want to get to this whole Ben Simmons superstar, not a superstar. John Wall can score 30 points a game, but he's not a superstar. Ben Simmons isn't a scorer, so in most people's mind, he stinks. Well, John Wall scores, he stinks.
But there is some things about John Wall that you do like. Obviously, he's 10 times more aggressive than Ben Simmons. He's done some things in the playoffs over his year, but there are some things that aren't good. Obviously, his inability at times to stay healthy, the contract that he has.
Right.
It's just a complete mess.
You could score on him.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a concern, but it looks like it's a bad situation either way, at least at this point for the Sixers, because they're not going to do this deal.
Well, I mean, yeah, in the story today, he essentially says he never intends to play again. He will not report. So here comes the stare down, man. Either you don't report, we'll fine you. You report, and
I feel vindicated with this, Mike. I got to tell you, this is the kind of guy this guy is. I mean,
hey, listen, if you heard my opening today, I hammered the guy, and I said, look, I don't dislike the player, but what he's doing right now is soft. This is a soft move. And look, my biggest problem with him hasn't been his game or his lack of this. I understand what he is. Could he be better? Absolutely, 1,000%. But this to me says he looked at himself in the mirror and said, I can't go back there. I didn't add anything to my game. I cannot go back there. I can't do it.
I would tell him, pound sand, dude. Do what you got to do.
I agree.
I don't care what you do. We're going to move on without you. We were better with you not on the court anyway. We'll do what we have to do.
Well, I said they can win. They can win for 45, 50 games with Joel Embiid, Maxey, Harris.
Right.
Mike, make them sit there and rot.
But it's a shame that I will say, and I mean this, I would get rid of Thibault and Simmons for John Wall. I would do that. I would. I'm not going to lie. I think you can find Thibault. I really do. I think
he's pretty good, man.
But he offers you nothing on offense.
And he doesn't. But if you're losing what Simmons gives you defensively, you got to replace that.
Yeah, but you still have good defenders on that team without him. So, yeah, you're not getting anything if you keep Ben Simmons and you still.
I'm saying my play is I hold them, I fine them, I let them rot until a team gets desperate and they call me because I need to retake over the value to say the other teams have the leverage now. I need to regain leverage in that you have now seen your team play. You know what you're missing. You're now calling me because you're missing my guy.
Right, and that's something I think they're going to ultimately have to do because they're not going to do anything else. So, that's probably going to be what the situation is going to be.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the games this weekend because there's a lot that of it. Now we're in week 3. We got a little bit of a sample size here. Jeff Nadeau, how do we bet some of these games this weekend? I already see one that's jumping up and down at me, and I got this Thursday night game. It's the Texans plus 4.5. That's up to plus 8 already. That thing has jumped almost 4 points, and this is Carolina going on the road. Now this Texans team, I guess the quarterback twitch has made this line jump.
Yeah, I played 8. I took 8 with Houston. I'm going to just be honest. I was waiting for 8. I got it right before I joined your show, and I played 8. Look, Mike, say what you want about
DraftKings, 7.5, mostly the other places.
Yeah, say what you want about Houston, but they won week 1. They put up 37 points, and that was with Tyrod Taylor at the quarterback. But I got to tell you, I don't think Davis Mills is terrible. I don't think they're as bad as they lead on to be. Now, they're not a good football team, but I think this is an overvalued Panther team. Okay, they're off a win against New Orleans. Obviously, they played great defensively. I still don't trust their quarterback. You're laying over a touchdown on the road. In the NFL, generally, I'll gladly bet against these spots because, again, I know the public's going to be betting on Carolina here. It's just that simple. So I'll gladly fade the road favorite. It could lose. They could lose by 20. Houston's that bad. But I've been in these situations the last couple of nights. I took the Ravens. That came in. I faded. And I went against the Detroit Lions as well last night. And I took a favorite there at home. So I've kind of been able to find these pretty easy.
All right. Well, road home favorite here. Home dog, Jacksonville, started at 2.5. Up to 7.5 now. So that line that you would imagine is going to keep going up. Where do I jump on that?
Well,
against Arizona, by the way.
Yeah, this is simply a case of Arizona is better than the markets thought they would be, and the Jags are even lower than the market thought they'd be. Look, the Jags are the worst team in the NFL, I think, at this point. If you look at Trevor Lawrence's advanced stats, they're not good. He's not even getting close to hitting receivers a lot of the time. He's got some growing pains, and they're just not really very talented. I guess the question you'll have is, do you trust Arizona's defense? I don't. I bet against it last week. I took the over. That game was over by the 14-minute mark of the third quarter. The question is, can the Jags put 20 on the board? Because I think Arizona is going to be good every week for 30. So I'm probably at this point I'd love 50.5, 51. I'm leaning over, but I'm also saying at Arizona, I'm probably going to lay it here. I kind of had this as a 10-point victory for Arizona.
All right, man, there's so many big jumps all over the place. Tennessee
was Mike,
plus.
Remember, you're looking at opener, which was out a while ago. So remember that they're obviously going to adjust for how these teams actually are. So.
Right. Well, Tennessee +1 when it opened. It's now they are -5.5. So they went from being a point dog to now favored by 5.5. And I guess a lot of that is they don't know what's going on with Carson Wentz.
Right. And look, you just kind of – I don't want to feel bad for Wentz, but I kind of – look, Brandon Brooks is the same way. The guy's always hurt. And Carson's the same guy. These guys just can't stay healthy. And Carson has 2 broken ankles. What's the chances of that, Mike? It's just you feel bad for the guy.
Sprained ankles.
Or yeah, that's what I mean, sprained ankles. But I also don't know. Tennessee, it seems like the market was really low after week 1. After week 2, they found a way to win. But the offensive line still had some problems. I don't love their defense. But yeah, I can't get involved with the Colts without Wentz. I don't really have much interest in that game whatsoever.
I agree with that. All right, another NFC East. Giants, Falcons. Now, the Giants have been dreadful. The Falcons have been worse. So you got Giants as a 3-point home favorite in this one.
Yeah, 2 bad teams. I lean on the Giants, but the problem I have here is I don't like either quarterback. I don't like Matt Ryan, but I also don't like Daniel Jones. I think they have the worst offensive line in the league, and I'm never going to be betting on the Giants this year. It's
2 bad offensive lines.
No, exactly. I will say this about a game that I also am about to bet. This is one that I watched last night's second half with kind of interest because I wanted to see how Detroit continued to play. Are they going to be a team that continues to try? Mike, there's something very clear going on with Detroit. They are going to score points. This offense can move the football. Jared Goff is a capable garbage time player, and that is a defense that cannot get any stops. Baltimore, same way. Baltimore is shocking defensively. They are really bad, Mike. Detroit will move the ball at any rate against Baltimore. I'm leaning over the total in this one.
All right, Jeff Nadeau at Jeff Nadeau on Twitter. The NFL line's out. Broncos opened at 5.5 when the season started. It's up to 11 now in certain spots. So we starting to trust the Broncos as a team. They're playing the Jets, who have been dreadful.
You know, Mike, with Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know if I mentioned this to you last week, but this guy is automatic against the spread. He is so good covering numbers. I just want to throw this out to your listeners. Okay, when you see the Broncos down the road on the road. In the last 26 games that Bridgewater's been a quarterback on the road, 23-3 against the spread. That's incredible. This guy covers numbers. It's that simple. Do I want to lay 11? Yeah, I don't really have a problem with that. The Jets are pretty bad. The Broncos continue to cover. They have a great defense. This kind of screams to me 28-13.
All right. I know, as you know, many of our listeners listen and they say, oh, man, I got some great information. That might be some good information for those guys right there. And that's last NFL game. Let's go to the early open on the Eagles was 6. It's now 4, 3.5 if you're using FanDuel. So it looks like people not ready to bury the Eagles just yet.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this game because I was so disgusted with what I saw on Sunday. I really was. Look, I'm not one of these fans that's going to be like, well, I didn't know if they'd be good anyway. Ugats, I don't care about that. This team made the same mistakes that they always make. And look, this team, Mike, frankly, didn't play very well when Brandon Brooks and Brandon Graham went out. And they're not going to have them this week. I need to know what's up with Dallas, though. What's Amari Cooper's status? Is DeMarcus Lawrence coming back? What's the offensive line?
Lawrence is out for Monday night.
That's right. He's been out. He's out for the foreseeable future. So that'll help a little bit without Brooks. I got to tell you, I thought Dickerson played pretty well. It was more Graham. The problem, Mike, that the Eagles have is if you take Graham out of that lineup, which you know, I don't like Derek Barnett at all. Derek Barnett's Vinny Curry. That's all he is. Some of these Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat was invisible on Sunday, and so was Ryan. Has Ryan Kerrigan played these 2 games? Where's he been?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how they compensate for Graham being out. Do they give Sweat more snap? And the problem with Sweat is he only plays 40% of the snaps. They don't give him a full, arsenal of snaps. Do they up that snap count? You're right. Kerrigan has only been playing about 30 snaps a game. Do they give more snaps to Barnett, for God's sakes? I mean, that's a big loss.
I'm just so sickened with and again, the play call, it wasn't good enough. It was a bad decision. They got too cute. We got God as fans a little bit. I think the Eagles are still a solid team and whatever, but they let an opportunity slide. As far as what would I play here? I don't know. I think Dallas will score against everybody, and we all know Dallas's defense is not good. They need to get to a happy medium, the Eagles, on the amount of long balls they're throwing and open the offense up. Zach Ertz, I'd like to see him in the lineup, and he might be even after the COVID diagnosis.
Yeah.
The negative test.
Yeah, well, it might be no Cooper in the game, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
That will be big.
Back, of course, Jeff will be back on Thursday. We'll have more information on these NFL games. Let's flip over to quick college. Couple thoughts on the college card. What was the game? Man, somebody you gave out what game was it? Was it Boston College? What was the game that somebody mentioned that you talked about it was UConn, about how bad UConn is. Who's UConn got this week? Yeah,
so that was probably, and again, I don't talk too much about beats. They happen, but Army was probably one of the worst beats I've had in a pretty long time. That was hard.
Yeah, they got me too.
That was hard to stomach. But, I ultimately had a pretty good week. It didn't start great. I had some rough beats, but, they happen. They even out over the long run.
Yeah, Army, by the way, is 8.5 against Miami of Ohio this week. One of the games last week, Texas A&M, I hit with them. We talked about them. They're 5.5 favorite on the road at Arkansas this week.
Yeah, I'm not running to the window to back Texas A&M. They've really struggled to move the football. They're struggling with quarterback play. Their offensive line hasn't been great. Good defense. That's probably first to 20 wins. But I don't think it's going to be an exciting game. I don't think it's going to be a game I want to wager on.
There you go. UConn is a 29.5-point dog this week.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Wyoming.
Wyoming is significantly better than UConn. That's a far trip from Laramie to Stores. That's not easy. That's a lot of points, but it's a better number that I want to lay against UConn as opposed to 34, because if we get backdoored there, it's a little bit more difficult to get backdoored. So I'm going to lean Wyoming, but I'm not running on the road to lay it.
Yeah, and Michigan State's another one. I took them outright last week against Miami. The 5, are you laying the 5 after a win against Miami against Nebraska here?
I'm starting to wonder, Mike, when should I jump back in with Nebraska? They beat me week 1 or week 0, but I got to tell you, I'm starting to find, I think, a little bit of a role with this team. I feel like I'm going to call that they beat Michigan State. I think Michigan State, a little high, a little high on Michigan. Nebraska still, remember, Mike, they've won, I think, 4 in a row. They're playing with some confidence now. Michigan State's a little overvalued to me. I might buy in on Nebraska if they get to 6.
All right. Now, how are you reading this USC? They fire the coach and they go out and pound Washington State. Now they're favored by 12.5, 12.5, 11.5 some places against Oregon State.
I don't think they're going to have a ton of trouble with Oregon State either. I mean, Oregon State is a young football team with a new quarterback. They're replacing some weapons last year. They play hard and they try, but USC is kind of on another level. Oregon State is one of the worst pass defenses in the country. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble in that game.
All right, a couple more here. West Virginia is playing Oklahoma. Now, West Virginia had the big win last week against Virginia Tech. Now they're another ranked team here on the road, though. Open 19.5. It's 16.5, 15.5 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Oklahoma seems broken to me, Mike.
Yes.
I got to tell you, I'm not running to lay 2-3 touchdowns with them in any circumstance, especially against I think, a pretty well-coached West Virginia team. They always play great defense under Neil Brown. Oklahoma just looks like lost right now, and I don't want to lay double digits to them, so I'd lean on the dog there.
Yeah, especially after Arch Manning decided. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, did you see that last night?
No, I did not. What happened?
Peyton Manning, they had did you watch the Manning cast at all?
No, I have not watched that, no.
All right, so they had
watch it with the sound off, so I don't really know who's doing
Well, they had McAfee on last night. So McAfee, of course, went to West Virginia. So he says to Peyton Manning, hey, do you want to break any news about where Arch is going to go? And Peyton Manning says, yeah, he's going to Morgantown. He's going to be the next Major Harris, Mark Bulger. He's throwing it. So then some schnook out there with a blue check mark tweets, Peyton Manning just announced that Arch Manning is going to WV. I said, what kind of idiot watched that and thought he was being – now, if it turns out that's where he goes, I don't believe he's considering West Virginia. But
this is the damaging thing about social media.
Yeah.
People can take context out. Like, I deal with it all the time, Mike. Like, I'll say something and then someone will be like, you said this. It's like, well, no, I didn't. I said this. But, yeah, this is the concerning thing about social media. You can't make jokes anymore.
All right. Favorite, what are you on right now? You got anything early that you're on?
Yeah, I got 2 early week games I played. I took Marshall plus 7.5 against Appalachian State. I think this number's a bit too high. Marshall lost last week to East Carolina, which I think is baked into the number. I think people are a little down on them. I think these two teams are pretty even, frankly.
That's a Thursday game, by the way, for the people out there.
Yeah, I'll take 7 points with Marshall. I think these two teams, as I said, are pretty even. I kind of would have put it at like 4.5 or 4. My favorite play of the weekend so far is a total I played over 66.5, Wake Forest, Virginia. I don't know where the stops come from in this game. Mike, do you know who the number 1 passing offense in the country is?
I'm imagining it's one of these two teams.
Virginia, 488 yards a game. And they're giving up almost 9 yards a carry on the ground. They can't stop anyone defensively. Wake will be able to run downhill. They'll be able to attack vertically. I don't see a lot of stops in this game. I think the tempo will be great. I think it'll be a fun game. Last week's Virginia game, Mike, 59-39 to UNC. I think it's probably like 44-41, something like that.
That's up to 68.5, so you got in on that pretty early.
As long as it stays, I think, under 70, I'm in.
All right. Jeff Nadeau's back on Thursday. We'll have new information. And Thursday Night Football, that App State Marshall game, he said he's already in on. That's a Thursday game as well. And we'll see if the Sixers trade Ben Simmons by Thursday. I doubt it.
I don't think that's going to happen, Mike.
All right, Jeff. Take care, man.
Okay, thanks, Mike. See you later.
At Jeff Nadeau. Don't forget, check out his Patreon channel as well. He'll give you out more winners over there here on the Sports Bash. Jeff is on Tuesdays and Thursday with winners for you. Plus, we like to go back and forth a lot. He's a big Philly fan, so it's always good to have Jeff on the show. Hopefully you enjoy hearing his insight and analysis on how to bet all the big games. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. So coming up, you heard the news. Ben Simmons doesn't want to be here, and he is intending to never play another game for the franchise. When we come back, CBS Sports national NBA writer Michael Kasky-Blomain joins us here to give us his insight. How will this all end? Next. Sports Bash on a Tuesday, brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? Of course, the Ben Simmons saga took another kind of turn today. Did it take a turn? Well, we'll bring in Michael Kasky-Blomain, CBS Sports, covers the NBA, get his thoughts on this whole situation. As I wouldn't say it's new news, but I guess this is about as definitive as it's going to get here, Michael, is through Woj. So if you want to get news out there, that's who you're going to. And Woj has essentially said, all right, this is Ben Simmons' stance. He never intends to play for the 76ers again. So I guess that's about as clear as you can get. So how does this stare down end on Tuesday when the Sixers show up to camp?
Yeah, you said it, Mike. This isn't necessarily new news, but I think there was, kind of a sense between the organization and the fans that, maybe ultimately things would, smooth over, at least to the point that Ben would come and report to camp and start the season with the Sixers and, go from there. At least that was the hope on the organization side after they didn't find a trade that they liked over the offseason. But like you said, this now, obviously Woj being the main story breaker in the NBA and a guy that, has the direct line to the agents and everything like that. It's a definitive stance from Ben now, basically saying that, listen, that's not going to happen. There's, it's too far gone. There's no coming back to this situation. So, at this point, it's going to be kind of like a public game of chicken, it seems like to me, Mike, where, the Sixers are holding firm in their stance that they're not interested in trading Ben for pennies on the dollar. It's a guy that they obviously used the top pick on just 5 years ago. A guy that's, for all his flaws, he's also certainly talented and still a very young player under contract for, 4 more years in their entirety. So it's not a player that the Sixers are willing to just say, okay, listen, we'll grant you this trade request and we'll move you for whatever we can get. They want to hold on to him until they like an offer, and he obviously doesn't want to be there. So to me, it's going to be a situation of, which side blinks first. Is ultimately Ben going to decide that he can't, afford to continue to sit out, assuming that the team finds him or suspends him if he doesn't show up? Or is it going to be a situation where, the Sixers ultimately get tired of the, the narrative and the looming issues hanging over the team, and they just have to ultimately pull the trigger for something, potentially less than what they would have hoped for.
Right. So there's so many different avenues here. I mean, do the Sixers blink? Do they just say, look, we'll find you. You could sit there and rot. We're not going to just give you away. So if you want to get fined and if you want to not play basketball for the next, can they can go down that road, but is that the way to go about this, or do they just now have to kind of acquiesce to him?
I think the Sixers are in control here, and I think they have a little bit of leverage. To me, this situation's different than other recent holdout situations or situations where a player wanted to be traded, whether that was, James Harden, Anthony Davis, situations like that. Because you're talking about Ben, who's still, his extension hasn't even fully kicked in yet. He has 4 full years left on that deal. And you don't often see a player saying, when a guy holds out, it's usually to get more, to get more money, to get that contract. Ben already has that. So to me, it's a situation where the Sixers certainly don't want to set a precedent where they have players under contract that aren't showing up, aren't, taking place in practice or in training camp, and aren't getting fined or aren't getting suspended for that. So to me, I think it's a situation where, especially since now Ben has made his position very clear that he doesn't want to be on the team, I think it's a situation where the Sixers need to move forward, suspend him, and, quite frankly, go for the fines as high as they possibly could. If it was a situation where they thought potentially, the two sides could reconcile, a suspension and heavy fines is pretty much, the end line where, there's no going back from that. But if it's already a situation where Ben is resolute in the fact that he's not going to play for the team again, I think it's in the Sixers' best interest to set a precedent that they're not going to accept a player basically not showing up for work, and that they'll, fine him every day to the highest level until they find a deal that they find, to be good for the team.
Right. I mean, at this point, you don't just give them away just to give them away. And you're hoping that maybe, him not playing, people kind of distance, and then they get to a point where they say, hey, our team is missing this. You have a guy who's unhappy, and then teams have to start reaching out to you. I mean, if you try to trade him now, you're going to lose the leverage in that. But by keeping him and finding him and not playing him, at some point, I guess the hope is that teams have to eventually tap out and then call you.
Absolutely, Mike. And you see it every year, after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month into a season, some teams, things aren't going as well as they thought. Issues arise. There's, chemistry things. And we see, often that blockbuster trades happen early in the season. Last year, it was James Harden. Jimmy Butler was traded to the Sixers in November of the year 2 seasons ago. Things like that happen early. So from the Sixers' perspective, there's really no incentive for them to try to force a trade at this point. If Ben's not going to play anyway, you wait it out. You go into the season with him not on the team, and you wait and see, are things were going to work out in Portland? Is Dame Lillard going to be happy, or is he going to potentially request that trade? Or the same could be asked about, Bradley Beal in Washington, Zach LaVine in Chicago. So to me, if you're the Sixers at this point, if he's not going to be out there anyway, you're in no rush. You wait and you see how things develop across the league over the first, few weeks, first month of the new season. And at that point, there's a good chance that, maybe a team will be interested in Ben's services then, and the Sixers can go from that point.
Now, according to Mark Stein, we're talking with Michael Kasky-Blomain from CBS Sports. He says, I was told very clearly that the Sixers do not liken these circumstances to Al Horford last season or John Wall in Houston. As the start of training camp draws near, Philadelphia has shown zero interest to date in striking the sort of mutual agreement that Wall and the Rockets have had to shelve the former All-Star guard. In other words, those teams said, we're okay with you sitting out and we could try to find a trade. It doesn't sound like the Sixers are saying, go sit out. We're okay with that. So it sounds to me, and maybe you, Michael, that the Sixers plan on finding him if he does not show up.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And there's a huge difference, obviously, between those situations that you just mentioned from Mark Stein, mainly being the fact that the Sixers are a team with championship expectations. They just signed Joel to that huge extension over the offseason. He was the runner-up for MVP last year. When you have a player like that, you're automatically in contention in win-now mode. The Thunder last season when they shelved Al Horford, obviously that was a mutual thing where they were going in a different, younger direction, wanted to rebuild, and they said that they would, find him a home when the time came, and they did. They, sent him back to Boston where he wanted to be. Same thing with, Kemba Walker's situation. Like, these are guys where teams were rebuilding, or John Wall rather, not Kemba Walker. In Houston, the teams were rebuilding, and the Sixers are in win-now mode. So if Ben's not going to be there, it's not a situation where they're going to do him any favors. They're going to find him until they find a player that helps them, remain in win-now mode. They're not looking to just move on and take a step backwards from where they were last season.
So, Michael, in your opinion, is this all predicated on the one time that Doc Rivers essentially said, I'm not sure if we can win with him, and what Joel Embiid said? Or are there other factors that got us to this point where Ben Simmons, who quite frankly has been babied by this organization for 5 years, all of a sudden has soured on them to this extent?
Yeah, Mike, it wasn't quite that sudden. To me, what I've been told and what I've heard over the course of the season is a lot of this stems from early last season when he was, Ben was mentioned consistently and dangled. He was made available by the Sixers in those James Harden trade talks. Obviously that deal never materialized. Harden went to Brooklyn. But, Simmons was told by the Sixers, and his representation was told that, he's being offered as a potential trade and that he could be moved. He said all the right things at that point. It was kind of a non-story once he remained in Philadelphia. He said that it's a business, he understands. But to me, what I heard is that that kind of rubbed him the wrong way from the beginning. He felt like he was, an all-star, borderline superstar player, and that the team was, willing to move on from him, didn't quite rub him the right way. Then fast forward, obviously, to, Mike, when this season ended and Joel said what he said, Doc Rivers said what he said, and the way that things transpired. And that was kind of the, the straw that broke the camel's back. That at that point, Ben decided, listen, I'm not valued by this organization to where I think I should be valued. These guys are, throwing me under the bus publicly, and it's gone from there. So it's not something that just popped up over this, the end of this season. It's something that's kind of been brewing for almost going on a year now. Okay. So obviously, I think both of us would agree that that's kind of weak sauce, right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'm not defending it. That's just what I've heard.
Right. No, I'm just saying our opinion would be that the Sixers have done enough to show this guy that they appreciate him. They gave him the contract. They have backed him. They haven't forced him to do anything. So for him to take this route is kind of weak. That being said, you get into a situation now if I'm looking at Ben Simmons as the Sixers, this to me tells me that he knows he hasn't added anything to his game and knows he cannot come back here if he hasn't improved his game at all. Like, okay, they're on to me. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And I definitely back what you said in terms of this being, a weak situation. I think Ben, this all stems. It wouldn't have been an issue if he didn't have such serious struggles in that playoff series against Atlanta. If he wasn't, almost a no-show in those fourth quarters of that series. If the Sixers were able to, just win that series, or if he was able to step up to the level that most people expected, this would be a non-issue. And I think the huge thing now is that Ben just doesn't at least seem to me. Obviously, I haven't been in conversation with him, but he just doesn't seem to be taking any sort of accountability. I'm not saying he's entitled to feel however he wants to feel. Maybe he felt like the organization threw him under the bus or whatever, but there just seems to be a lack of accountability, a lack of maturity on his end to take this stance where, like you said, the organization has done everything for him. They gave him the extension. He was mentioned in trade talks for James Harden, but ultimately they didn't pull the trigger, which was a compliment to him. James Harden being obviously one of the best players in the league. The fact that they were even kind of contemplating that shows that they had a lot of hope and trust in Ben.
Not to mention, Michael, I mean, the fact that they're telling him, we value you to this extent. You told us you wanted to be traded. The value we have in you is we want these level of players because that's how good we think you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. They're only holding out for star level players. The value that they have in him is still extremely evident and obvious, and it's just unfortunate that it's come to this at this point. But they have reason to feel that way. The dude to me is the best defender in the NBA. The team is going to take, a step back defensively pretty much no matter who they get in return for Ben Simmons. There's not another player, as versatile as he is defensively in the league on the perimeter. So, the Sixers have continued to value him. They were ready to bring him back into the fold to start the season and go from there. I heard, earlier this offseason that the Sixers were potentially ready to bring him back with an open mind to even say, hey, maybe if he comes back into this team and he's, motivated and he looks good and he's expanded a little bit, at least he's taken some of those shots, he looks confident, maybe we could work this thing out long term and there doesn't need to be a separation. Obviously since then, all the reports have come out about Ben just having no interest. So it's really Ben at this point that's kind of speeding up this process and making it, the break that it is, where I think the Sixers were much more willing to say like, hey, let's work this out.
Yeah, Michael Kasky-Blomane, CBS Sports, covers the NBA, and obviously Ben Simmons wants out. He does not intend to. Now, he, according to the reports anyway, understands the ramifications, the financial ramifications here. Is that a smokescreen? I mean, or once he gets fined, does he change his tune? He's due $30+ million this year, Michael.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, Mike, where it's a lot easier to say, hold this stance going into training camp, going into a season, say, I don't care about the money. I'll be really interested if this lingers and we're 2-3 weeks into the season and he's still, not getting paid. He could potentially lose, upwards of $200,000 if he's suspended by the team. Every game practice that he misses, he could be fined up to 1/50th of his total compensation, which comes out to over $200,000 a game or a practice. And that 5 of those you're missing out on $1 million a month worth. That's a huge chunk of money, even for an athlete that's very well paid. So to me, it's really one of those things where I think it's a situation where, sure, like I don't expect him to be a media day on Monday. I don't expect him to be a training camp. But if there's no sign of a trade in sight come, November, middle of November, late November, at that point, is he really going to be willing to continue to give up that money? I don't know, but it's tough to imagine that anyone would be all right with, losing out on that much money.
Right. When I put in a request for Ben Simmons, I got a laughing emoji. I'm kidding. We do hope to talk to somebody from the Sixers next week when they do have media day. As Michael mentioned, they are opening camp on Tuesday. The anticipation is that Ben Simmons will not be there. I guess a question I have then is, do the Sixers feel that they are good enough to be stable? Like, they're in a tough situation for this reason. They understand what they have in Joel Embiid. They cannot waste the Joel Embiid years. But do they feel that they are good enough to go into the season without Ben Simmons, without trading Ben Simmons, and hope that they can, be a top 4 seed without Ben Simmons and then make a decision on him and possibly have him change his mind?
I think so, Mike. I mean, obviously, it's not ideal. Anytime you have arguably your second best player not there, the team's going to take a hit. I do think that they feel, especially with the development of some of the younger guys, Matisse Thybulle going into his third year, Tyrese Maxey, who could potentially maybe even step into a starting spot if Ben's not there, or at least take a huge step forward in his role, combined with, they brought in obviously Andre Drummond, Yang. They have the guys Tobias, Seth, Joel. I think they feel like they have a roster that can continue to be competitive. Maybe not a one seed like last year, but could, like you said, be in that top 3, 4, 5 in the East for the time being, and then go from there. Obviously, I think the hope is that ultimately, if they're able to tread water and stay in that top East conversation until a deal is made, then obviously whatever they get back will help them. Kind of buoy them up toward the top again. But I think that they are prepared to be without Ben for at least the short term. And I do think that they think that, the roster is good enough to at least compete in the East for the regular season for the time being.
Do any of the trades that are kind of being bantied about, John Wall, whoever's been out there, do any of those trades make you a better team?
I've yet to see one, Mike. There's a lot of young players that have been tossed around, a lot of draft picks, which would, have been good in years past. But to me, like I said, you're pretty much going to take a step back defensively, no matter who you get. And offensively, you do need to account for Ben's playmaking, the things he did for that offense. So to me, a lot of the, getting young players back, getting draft picks back, it's obviously not going to help you in the short term when you still have Joel in his prime. And none of these other guys that have been mentioned, John Wall obviously he's a talented player, but the contract's huge. Some of the other guys that have been mentioned, it's just nothing to me that really I've seen it and been like, all right, well, this team is, not only going to stay as good as they were last year, they could potentially take a step forward. Yeah. And I think, that's what they're holding out for. Ultimately, is that offer going to become available? We don't know, but I think that's what Morey, Brand, and the rest of the front office is, waiting to see.
And this is where MKB, I'm a little, just saying, you know what, Ben doesn't want to be here. Let's just get this circus over with. I don't want to have to then include another player like a Maxey or a Thybulle in a trade just to get him out of here at this point. I would rather hold on to him, make him sit and rot and fine him until another team gets desperate where they call you and then you rehold the cards.
Absolutely.
Because right now, they don't hold the cards if they trade him today, tomorrow, or the next. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a matter of perception too, Mike. What you just said, I think definitely that's the stance that the team should take. And from, what I've heard, I think that's what they will take. I think it's a situation where they need to send, the message that they're in control here, that this is on their timeline, that he has 4 more years under their, under contract. And it's, whenever they want to do it, obviously they don't want to take that step back. So to me, I definitely agree. And I think it's a situation where, if there's no offer for him, you let him sit, you don't play him, you fine him, and then, they go from there.
All right. Michael Kasky-Blomain, this should take a couple twists and turns. Tuesday, the Sixers report to camp, and it looks likely it will be without Ben Simmons. And we'll have more on this throughout the week. And, of course, at The Real Mike KB on Twitter. And, of course, if something happens, we'll have it here for you here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. MKB, Sixers, NBA, all back. Can't wait to talk to you again this year, man.
You too, man. Thanks, Mike.
All right, MKB, CBS Sports, covers the NBA, covers the Sixers here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget, you can download the free mobile app. It's free in the Apple Store or Google Play, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. Sports Bash is brought to you by Indeed, which helps you hire great people fast. Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. Visit Indeed.com/credit. And don't forget, you can be a part of this year's LPGA Pro-Am. Go to 973ESPN.com right now and click on the Enter to Win an LPGA VIP Experience link. And you can enter right there. And on Friday's show, we will announce who will be our 4th member of the foursome. Me, Pete Thompson, an LPGA professional, and somebody listening out there. If anybody has played in the Pro-Am in the past, this is one of the premier events of the entire calendar year. You are going to want to be the 4th member. So enter now over at 97.3 ESPN.com. It's next Wednesday, by the way. That's the day of the Pro-Am. So make sure you're available to play with us on Wednesday. And I'm going to see if I can find out where we are playing. I just got a registration for the Pro-Am. Let me see if I know where we are playing. I'll try to get that information for you. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. When we come back, all right, this Ben Simmons thing is very interesting, but these are the 5 things that could really happen here. I will tell you those coming up next. 3:51 on a Sports Bash Tuesday. I'm Mike Gill at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Download the free mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle. And you can message the show. We got a lot of messages coming in on the free mobile app. We got text messages on the text board. We got video message on the video stream. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. So there's 5 avenues that I clearly see this Simmons saga going. All right, there's 5 avenues that I think are the most possible endings to this thing. 1, this is the least possible. The team gets an offer they like and they trade him. I do not see that happening. 2, Simmons holds out and the team finds him. I see that to be very possible. 3, Simmons holds out and the team chooses not to find him, trying to repair the relationship. I see that being a minimal possibility based on the reporting that came in after I wrote this article. 4, Simmons shows up and tries to improve his value and the team trades him during the season. That I see minimal because it sounds like Simmons has no intention to ever play for the team again. 5, Simmons shows up and shows an improved game and the team decides they no longer are willing to move him since he came back an improved player. That I don't see happening either. I've maintained throughout the Simmons saga that Daryl Morey will not trade Simmons to make the team different or just move him to appease him. I do, however, think Morey would move Simmons if he felt it would help the team. Well, after this report came out earlier today from Mark Stein, that the expectation is that Ben Simmons will not report, but the Sixers say they remain intent on trying to convince Simmons to report. Well, later on in the day, Mark Stein got trumped by Adrian Wojnarowski, who said Simmons will not only not report, he never intends to play for the franchise again. He has had no direct communication with the organization, and he does understand the ramifications if he chooses to sit out the season. So let's go back to the 5. One that I have to add to this list now is the team finds him, has him sit there, and then I think the best case scenario for them is that they wait this out, have him sit and rot, fine him, and hope that there is a team, the Denver Nuggets, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, a team that is on the precipice of winning a championship, but they feel that maybe they're a wing defender short. I don't know who that team might be. It could materialize in the middle of the season. Maybe the Knicks say, you know what, we want to bring him to Madison Square Garden. Maybe the Bulls say, hey, we'd love to bring him to Chi-Town. Maybe the Heat say, look, we think he's the missing piece, and we could be a championship contender if we have that big-time wing defender. Maybe it's the Atlanta Hawks who need that defender. I don't know who it is, but I think the Sixers' best course of action here is waiting for that moment. Because if you don't wait for that moment and you trade him just to trade him, you have given into a guy who signed a contract that still has 4 years left on the deal. And I'm not willing to go down that route. Are you? Coming up later, 6 Ben Simmons trades. But next, it's football at 4 with DeCecco.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DeCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harris Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today. Go to Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill on Twitter. Andrew DeCecco, Football at 4. From InsideTheBirds.com at A DeCecco NFL, as he joins us now here with a look back and a look ahead and a look forward to the Eagles and Cowboys, and one last look at the Eagles and Niners, Andrew, which certainly had a little bit of a different feel. A lot of missed opportunities, which was a lot different. They seemed to capitalize on every opportunity in week number 1, not so in week 2.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. I mean, they got very cute in the red zone, which you have to run your offense, Mike. You just need to go with what got you there, run the football. You had opportunities to do so instead of doing, an outrageous call there. It didn't really make a lot of sense. Obviously, with Greg Ward on the field, he's not really been a focal point on offense, so something obviously was awry if you're looking at it from the 49ers standpoint. And they defended it well. And, I thought that there were opportunities throughout the game for them to really take control of it, and they just didn't do it. But you know what? You heard Jalen Hurts say it after the game. You heard Nick Sirianni say it after the game. You take this loss, you own it, and then you move on and correct the mistakes for next week because you have a big game against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Now, I mean, a learning experience. Obviously, you're playing against a good 49ers team, but in that game, were there discouraging points, or was it other things that cost him in that game, or were there things that were really you left discouraged after seeing?
I don't know if I would say discouraged. I mean, there's certain parts of that game where you have to remember that you have a first-year play caller, Nick Sirianni, and Jalen Hurts is making a 6th start. You have a lot of young receivers out there. I mean, growing pains are to be expected, but it's not time at all. We're far from the point of hitting the panic button, I would say. I mean, the receivers, it was a group effort. I mean, the receivers, Jalen Reagor had a touchdown, but he was squeezed to the sideline there. Obviously, he needs to leave more room in his releases. But the receivers as a whole did not do a great job getting open against a physical set of corners in Josh Norman and Diamante Lenore. Are they all-world corners? They're far from it, but they're very physical. So I thought that they did a decent job in coverage. I thought the Eagles were going to do a better job of taking advantage of a shorthanded defense, which they did not. Jalen Hurts, I thought that his timing is a little bit off, particularly on the deep balls. I think he threw that good 91-yarder to Quez Watkins, but I thought that by and large, his timing was a little bit off. You saw him take off and run because he had to. He hung in the pocket a lot longer than he had been, in his sample size last season. Guys just weren't getting open, and he took it upon himself to shoulder the offense and took off and used his legs. But I thought the defense did a solid job to keep him in the game. I just thought that offensively they need to execute better against the Cowboys.
Yeah, a lot of missed opportunities, including they get down inside the goal line. You mentioned the Philly special S type of play, but I like it a lot too. I didn't love the play calls. I also didn't like the play design. That was a little discouraging too. Like there was a lot of routes where there was only one option. It just didn't seem like there was very good play design. And I thought, you talk about missed opportunities. You punch one in there, you're up 10-0, and then you mentioned the Reagor stepping out of bounds. You could have been up 17-0 in this game.
Yeah, I mean, and they had all the momentum in the early goings of this game, right? I mean, Javon Hargrave coming out, stopping the running back Elijah Mitchell for a 4-yard loss. You had the crowd behind you. You had the momentum going, and there were opportunities, if you go back and watch, for the Eagles to really capitalize on the 49ers defense. The 49ers, you got to credit D'Amico Ryans for calling a tremendous game. He won that matchup against Nick Sirianni when Nick Sirianni's offense versus D'Amico Ryans' defense. I thought he did a really good job scheming things up. but there were opportunities there. I thought that they didn't necessarily open the playbook fully for Jalen Hurts. I think he can do a lot more than what he was really being asked to do. I think that they focused too much on the deep ball. They didn't really take advantage of the two tight ends working over the middle of the field. There were opportunities there. Again, I think this is, a learning situation for a very young offense.
Yeah.
Because the defense did their job, and you allow 17 points.
Yep.
As a defense, you should win every game.
Totally agree with the 17-point aspect of it. You mentioned too many shots down the field. Week 1, they didn't take any shots down the field. Not in a critical way, but more 10-day. What did we learn about them taking shots down the field? Is that something that they can bring into their offense? Did you like, the way Hurts looked in throwing the ball down the field?
Yeah, I think that can be. I mean, they have the speed for it. I think, I don't buy into this. Hurts doesn't have his arm strength is questionable. It's not. He has enough arm to make those throws. I think it's more of a timing and just an accuracy issue, and that's going to come with time. I think that you see the receivers are able to get open down the field. I think the short to intermediate routes, they were really covered up pretty well from the 49ers standpoint. And I think that's where you need to figure out, if you're Nick Sirianni, how can we scheme these guys open consistently, because they didn't have that problem against the Falcons. But to answer your question, I think the deep ball, the deep aspect of the Eagles offense, I think that's going to be a consistent focal point, because they have the speed to stretch the field, and that really opens up everything else.
Yeah, I know that they did connect on the one big play to Quez Watkins, and I want to get your opinion, Andrew, on the usage of Quez Watkins. The first game, a lot of bubble screens. This time they shot him down the field. You gotta like the way they're using him, but I guess more of the question is how they're using their wide receivers in general, where Watkins turned out to be, your most productive guy on Sunday.
Yeah, that was a little bit interesting, because I thought Devontae Smith for sure would have really thrived on those short to intermediate routes against a player in Josh Norman, who was a recent addition to the 49ers. He doesn't run particularly well, and he's grabby. So I thought that there was going to be an opportunity to really hit him on possibly a double move and just really expose him. I think Quez Watkins, it's nice to see that they didn't just use him on these, quick screens and get him in space. They definitely use his vertical ability, and you really have to account for, he can run the full gamut of routes now, Mike. So he's not a very limited player. He's not going to be a volume guy, but I think that they can't just defend those short routes. They're going to have to protect against him burning them deep, because he has that ability. Jalen Reagor, to me, is a little bit interesting in how he's been used, or lack thereof, this week in those terms, because I thought that he really needs to be fine, and he needs to be schemed in space, let him take advantage of his explosive ability, much like he was in week 1. And I thought that there was an opportunity to get him going, and you didn't really see that this week. So that was a little bit, little interesting to me to see how they chose to use him this week. So that's something to keep an eye on, because he's going to have an opportunity here to really take advantage of a vulnerable Cowboys secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the pain up and down, painful. I don't want to say painful is not the right word, but the up and down nature, the inconsistencies you're going to get with a rookie wide receiver and 2 second-year guys.
Yeah, and that was to be expected, right? I mean, I've written about it. I know Jeff and Adam have mentioned it on the podcast before. This is something that you need to – there's going to be growing pains with these guys. There's going to be weeks where Devontae Smith's going to have a big week, and then you might not hear from him for a while, but it might be Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor picking up the slack. They just have a lot of young players, and they have a lot of guys to facilitate the ball to. And when you look at a player, for example, like Jalen Reagor on that touchdown, Nick Sirianni astutely pointed out that when he releases off the line, leave a little bit more room so you're not getting squeezed out by the corner. I mean, these are fundamental things, but these are errors that you have to take the good with the bad with these young players, because they're sort of learning on the fly, so to speak.
Andrew DeCecco covers the Eagles, InsideTheBirds.com. Of course, the Eagles lose to San Francisco, get ready to move on, but they lost more than the game, Andrew. They lost a couple of key players, and let's start with Brandon Graham, the heart and soul, really, of this team. He has been their best pass rusher. He has been their best run stuffer. So how do you see them replacing him and his production? How do they kind of patch this thing together?
Well, first and foremost, Brandon Graham can't be replaced. I mean, his energy, his ability to set the edge and anchor against the run, his leadership, both on and off the field, is going to be near impossible to replicate. However, the three guys that are going to sort of provide, you're going to see a combination of Josh Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan, and Derek Barnett to fill the void. I would assume that you're going to see a lot of Ryan Kerrigan and Barnett and Josh Sweat working in. I ultimately think that Josh Sweat is going to take over that role. And I think you're going to see a lot of platooning between Kerrigan and Sweat, but I think Kerrigan's going to start and assume more of a larger role, particularly because of his run defense, I would say. But, I mean, those are going to be the guys they're going to have to roll with. Teron Jackson is really best suited to be a fifth defensive end at this stage of his young career. But he's going to have an elevated role now as the fourth defensive end. So, I mean, thankfully, you also have Milton Williams that can play outside and inside, so that helps too. I think they're going to be okay there, but you're really going to miss the leadership from Brandon Graham and just his ability on the field. I mean, he has a relentless motor, and his ability against the run is unmatched from any other players at that position.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Josh Sweat got that big deal. Do they up his snaps? I mean, do you see more of Kerrigan? We'll find out, I guess, starting on Monday night against the Cowboys. And then, of course, Andrew, right guard Brandon Brooks. Now, he's not lost for the season, but he's going to be on injured reserve for at least the next 3 weeks. And I guess that means Landon Dickerson is the guy. Two questions. One, is Landon Dickerson the guy that you would go with here, or is there somebody else, maybe Herbig or Driscoll, or do you like Dickerson? And what did you think of Dickerson in his first NFL action?
Well, the second part of your question I'll address first. I thought that he acquitted himself fairly well. He flashed some athleticism, but obviously, I thought that from a leverage standpoint, he was pretty high when he, off the snap, and the little things, Mike, that he's going to need to work on. Remember, this Landon Dickerson has not played football in 9 months, game action, since tearing his ACL in the 2020 SEC championship game, and you saw signs of rust, and that's to be expected. But I mean, in his 33 snaps, you saw some encouraging signs. Now, I think that he was sort of inserted a little bit earlier than the Eagles probably would have liked, and if I'm looking at pretty much I don't want to say a must win, but it's a very pivotal matchup with the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. Nate Herbig, to me, started 12 games last season. He was third on the team in snaps with 893. There won't be a big acclimation period for him. You can kind of plug him in. I thought he manned that position pretty adequately last season, like I said. And, I think that there's a little bit of continuity there with him. So, I mean, on not a short week, but I would plug him in for this primetime matchup and really let Landon Dickerson, I would think if you're Jeff Stelman and Nick Sirianni, really let him continue to develop, get stronger, and learn under Stoutland's tutelage this season, and take the reins next season. But I don't know that you want to overexpose him, fresh coming off an ACL injury, that he suffered 9 months ago.
Right. So you would go with Herbig over Dickerson in this situation here. And then, of course, you hope to get Brandon Brooks back at some point down the line here because, Andrew, I think even though this is interesting, the offense only scored 11 points, but do we agree that the offensive line played pretty well?
Yeah. I mean, the offensive line has held up very well. I mean, definitely against the Falcons, but I thought they did a decent job in week 2, obviously. In the latter stages of that game, a lot of it you can attribute to Landon Dickerson. But again, he's a young player. He's going to need time to really adjust to the speed of the NFL. But I thought that losing Brandon Brooks, you saw Jalen Hurts under siege a little bit there, and you saw him have to take off as a result. But like I said, I would go with Nate Herbig for this week just because of his experience at that position. And you really don't want to overexpose Landon Dickerson, I wouldn't think, and have him, tack on a lot of mileage when he's, really just freshly and, he was on the active roster to start the season. But I mean, and I think that he was playing a little bit earlier than they anticipated.
Yeah, we're talking with Andrew DeCecco. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. And obviously, 17 points, the defense played pretty well. Was there something in the defense, though, that maybe needs to be worked on? Or do you like what you've seen from Jonathan Gannon's group for the first 2 weeks?
That's a good question. I think that the defensive line needs to get a little bit more pressure, particularly off the edges. You would like to see them get some takeaways. They have no takeaways in 2 weeks. That's got to change in order to really play complementary football. I think the secondary did a pretty decent job outside of Deebo Samuel, who had 93 yards. I thought that they did a pretty good job bottling up. I mean, George Kittle had 17 yards on the day. I mean, he was 4 for 4, but he had 17 yards. I thought Singleton and Eric Wilson did a decent job. I thought the defensive tackles looked good. But at the end, you saw them start to wear down. You can only ask your defense to do so much before you need to see some returns on the other side and play complementary football. And you started to see the running game start to take its toll, and they lost a little bit of steam there. And you talk about Fletcher Cox mentioned the deflating penalty, obviously, on Kayvon Wallace there. And I think it was just between them wearing down and letting the air out of their sails with a play like that, with the game sort of hanging in the balance. I think that's sort of what you saw them falter at the end.
Hey, your thoughts on what the team – can they send a message to the Derek Barnett type of play that for him, I believe Zach Berman tweeted this out earlier this week, he has 6 unnecessary roughness penalties and 2 quarterback roughing penalties. So he has been a perpetual 15-yard penalty guy. Is there a message here, or because of Graham being hurt, do you got to kind of keep rolling with him more?
Yeah, I mean, just senseless, undisciplined football from Derek Barnett on so many countless occasions. I mean, you can remember that Green Bay game. I want to say it was 2019 maybe, where he had a late hit there on an unnecessary roughness penalty, and I think he was ejected, if I'm remembering it correctly. And I mean, this just can't happen, especially now that you're down to you have three defensive ends that you're really counting on. I think that they're going to handle that internally and really stress that. You heard Nick Sirianni was asked that question yesterday. There's not a whole lot that they can really do. I don't know that he's going to be disciplined or anything like that, but I mean, you really have to drive the point home that you're hurting your team. You have to think before you act, and you shouldn't have to tell. He's a veteran right now, Mike. I mean, he's 25 years old. You have to know better and think about your team and not put them in a situation like that. And I think that they're going to handle that and talk to them, and hopefully that gets resolved, because they can't afford those silly penalties. You have to be disciplined, and you have to remain composed throughout the entirety of the game. You're a professional.
All right, I know you'll be back on Friday. We'll break down the Eagles and Cowboys a little bit more, but on the surface, first thought on the biggest issue for Philadelphia in this matchup is what?
I would say offensive consistency, and I would say turnovers. You got to get turnovers. In order to beat a team like Dallas who can score, you got to help your offense out and come up with some turnovers here. I mean, that's been a problem here for a number of seasons now.
All right, Andrew DeCecco, of course, the guys over at the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, giving you football at 4 every day right here at 4 o'clock on the Sports Bash Live. As the Eagles fall to 1-1, they are tied for first place. So obviously a big one on Monday night. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN as the Eagles and Cowboys both 1-1 inside the NFC East, as is Washington. So 3 teams, 1-1. New York is 0-2. Andrew, appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you Friday, pal.
Sounds good, Mike. Have a good one.
All right, Andrew DeCecco here on the Sports Bash Football at 4. It is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West Tropicana and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. And don't forget, you can enter for a chance to play in our foursome for this year's LPGA Pro-Am at any time. Just go to our website, 973ESPN.com, to get the details. And you'll play with Pete and I and an LPGA professional in this year's LPGA Pro-Am. It's one of the top events of the year. Make sure you fill that out. Go to 973ESPN.com. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. And coming up, it is this week's edition of Who's In and Who's Out. These are the 14 teams that I think will make the NFL playoffs after watching 2 weeks of NFL football in the books. So stay tuned for that coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle. What else we got going on? PT, Tuesday with Thompson, coming up at 5 o'clock tonight. And Rob Motti covers the NFL and the Eagles for the Associated Press. So we're still very busy. A lot of your texts, calls, tweets, comments. If you're watching on the video stream, if you're download the free mobile app, it is all right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. I'm reading some of the comments on the video stream. Some of them I can't post. Back with more Sports Bash.
The original Peloton bike offers more motivation.
Great job, team!
70% of members say they work out more now with Peloton than before. Get game-changing cardio at a new game-changing price. The original Peloton bike, now $400 less. Learn more at onepeloton.com.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish is...
It's pretty bad. So we're using Babbel.
Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. It's time for this week's edition of the Fine Five, Ugly Five, five best, five worst teams. Actually, that's tomorrow. Today's only Tuesday. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I apologize. I had one of those days. When you wake up at a wacky time, why do you remember the number of the time that you actually woke up? It's actually not even the time I woke up. It's the time that I finally looked over at my phone, which was 4:21 a.m., and I have been awake since that point. So you know what I did? Around 9 o'clock today, I decided, you know what? I'm going to try to catch like a 45-minute cat nap. And I laid down, and I literally just stared at the ceiling for about 15 minutes, and I decided this isn't working. But before I did that, I said, hey, Google, wake me up at 10:30. Well, I then left my house before 10:30. I was dressed, showered, left the house, got to the office before 10:30. So you know what happened? My alarm is probably just having a good old time in my house right now, running around, leaving crumbs all over the place. Does that alarm go off? Does the Google alarm just magically go off at some point? Does anybody know? Because if not, now I lie because I did go home for lunch and it wasn't on. But I don't know how long did it go before it just tapped out and said, all right, you're not waking up, you lazy ass. I'm turning off. But 421 will do some crazy things to your brain, like make you think it's Wednesday. No, it's time for Who's In and Who's Out here on the Sports Bash, and it's brought to you by BMW of Atlantic City, closer than you think, online at bmwatlanticcity.com. So a couple things. Josh, did you watch the Manning cast last night?
Absolutely.
Yep. So in your mind, did they improve from week one? Because you loved it in week one. Were they even better in week two?
I thought they did a better job at the dialogue back and forth between Peyton and Eli.
Yeah.
They still have this issue, and I don't know where. And I'm only asking this question because you and I work in a business where we've been on both sides of how this works, being on the air and off the air stuff. It seems like the whole situation with who comes in from the break is like an issue for them still. And you could actually hear on the broadcast the guy saying, you're coming back in 5 seconds. Or you hear them saying,
yeah,
hey, you take it.
I thought they also lowered the Nat sound. You couldn't hear the crowd and the game as much.
Which was good.
Right. The only thing I would say is like Gronk, he did not want to watch the game at all.
Gronk brought nothing to the cast.
He had no desire to be there. Patrick Willis was terrible.
He was useless.
In fact, at one point, Peyton Manning
asked him a question.
Well, that we're going to talk about Tennessee and Ole Miss. They never did that because I think Peyton Manning got to the point where he said, well, Willis is offering nothing. Right. Thanks a lot, Eli. Like Eli's like, hey, I got a guest.
Right.
Patrick Willis. Willis brought nothing to the table. But
you know what it was like?
WVU alum, Pat McAfee, he needs to be on he needs to be a part of it.
He needs a better mic, though.
He was great. The story he told about Manning coming out like Stone Cold Steve Austin was hilarious.
It's French Lick Casino.
Yeah, the French Lick Casino. He's like, it was like Jesus himself came out when that, oh man, McAfee is tremendous. Brett Favre was just, that was a little bit of a clunky interview. I'm really looking forward to him talking about Sirianni and Hurts and next week. Are people out there going to watch the Manning cast? I wonder.
I probably will, because for me, I'm the kind of person where when I watch a football game, Mike, I don't know how you feel. The broadcasters don't make or break a game for me. So
no, but I will say, watching the game without the play-by-play and setting it all up, you do kind of lose a little bit of time, score, feel of the game, I guess. You don't find that?
Not really, only because of the fact that I'm already focused on that. So it's like Peyton and Eli are absorbing my other my other ADHD issues kind of thing.
I don't know. I do miss watching the game with the call. I do appreciate the call and all that stuff. So
yeah, I don't hate people who call games. I just find what Peyton and Eli do fascinating because some of their explanations for things are stuff that you wouldn't get on the regular broadcast.
yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the Manning cast, but next week with the Eagles being on, I'm a little conflicted. I do want to see, especially Eli, playing against the Eagles and the Giants and all that stuff. So I'm definitely looking forward. Yeah, well, and you got the two NFC East teams. And then, what Peyton's going to say about Sirianni. I'm almost more interested because he really critiques about, like, you got to call a timeout there or that's a bad call. Like,
also,
he really.
You notice how Peyton, he mentioned the broadcast that Pat McAfee, he said, I do the amount of tape study as if I was going to play.
Yeah.
He goes, I actually, like, when I watch a game, he says, I'm going through the motions like if I was playing or if I was making play calls. And I like that for me as a viewer.
Yeah, I just find myself, like, not even paying attention to the game sometimes. Like, I'm watching those two and not the actual action on the screen. That's the problem that I'm having. Like next week saying, I want to watch the Eagles game. I got to get into the game. I got to take my notes and do all that stuff. But I find myself diving into their and then sometimes they're not even talking about the game. I mean, with Gronk, they're talking about this, that. They're talking about getting into a bar with Brett Favre. They're talking about, the casino night with and then the Thanksgiving dinner with McAfee.
Yeah, but Hank Baskey name mentioned last
Kendra
time.
Wilkinson, she was there.
By the way, here's an idea for you. How about you DVR the Manning cast?
I'm not going to do that, though.
Watch the regular broadcast, and then when you want to rewatch the Eagles game, you watch on the Manning cast.
I'm not a DVR the game and then go back and watch. Like, there's so much social media out there. I know what happens in the game. I don't have the time or the patience to go re-watch. Like these guys Jeff Kerr said he watched the game twice yesterday. I mean, for God's sakes, what are you doing with your day?
Well, I guess I'm a loser then because I rewatched the game too.
Yeah, well, what are you doing with your day? You rewatch the game like I watched it. I took my notes. It's right here. You really watched the Eagles game twice?
Yes.
Gee whiz.
Well, they can fast forward. It's the part
right.
you want.
Here's my who's in, who's out. What do you think?
I think it'll be good.
AFC East, I got the Bills.
All right.
I
think it's the only choice at this point.
I mean, Miami looked terrible the other day.
I didn't think they would look that bad with Brissett, and they looked horrible.
North, everybody's 1-1. I'm going Cleveland here. They're the only team with a plus differential. I think they have the best offense. Pittsburgh's got problems on offense. Baltimore's got problems on defense. My God, their defense stinks. The South, I'm going to go Tennessee. They needed that win, and they got it. That division's terrible, though. And Indianapolis, their best, the biggest adversary is 0-2, and 2 home games they lost. So that's no good. The West, I'm going to go Kansas City, but the wild cards in the AFC are really tough. I'm going to go Vegas. I don't like saying Vegas, but they actually look pretty good.
You got to give them credit. They're 2-0.
Carr's playing really well. So I'm going to go Vegas, Baltimore, and the Chargers.
I think it's fair as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, that means Pittsburgh's out. That means Denver, who's 2-0, is out. That means Indianapolis is out, and that means New England would be out. And I had them in early in the season. All right, NFC side, I've got Dallas in the East, and I don't know that this game is like a division separating game, because I think I think in the end, Dallas is going to run away with this division, in my opinion. Unless Philadelphia, the problem is, I said Philadelphia can hang around unless injuries. They got 2 injuries that they just cannot, or they're not going to overcome the Brandon Graham injury, I don't think. That's a big one. Brooks, I think they can kind of overcome, but they can't lose another guy on that line, right? They can't lose another guy on the line.
Correct.
So I'll go Dallas, Green Bay. That division's going to be a runaway. Tampa. And I like San Francisco in the West.
Even with the injuries piling up?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those injuries, though, like they got through a road game Sunday. I know against Philadelphia, but I think they're going to get some of these guys back. I just like. I like that team. I like I like Shanahan, I think, is the coach, is what it is.
Okay.
Fair. So I'm going 49ers. Now, I picked them at the beginning of the year, so I'm going to stick with them, and they haven't show me any reason not to. Their defense is really good, man.
Yeah, that would have been a very good prop swap for you. I think they were plus 190 before the season.
Well, that division right now, everybody's 2-0 except for Seattle. Now, in the wild cards, this is tough. I'm going Rams. I'm going Seattle. They lost at home, too. Man, their defense looked terrible the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm conflicted on this last one, which I didn't fill in yet. Because I'll tell you what, I like Carolina's defense. Their defense is really good, man.
See, I would go Carolina because it's more than just the defense. Darnold looks good, too.
Yeah, but Murray looks really good. Their problem is I think they're missing something. I don't know what it is, but I feel like Arizona is missing something. That division's really tough, where Carolina is going to have a couple easier games inside that. They play Philadelphia. They play the NFC East. I kind of like Carolina. Their defense, they went out and did a great job in free agency. People don't really realize. They went out and got Reddick, Thompson.
J.C. Horn looks real good.
Not Colin Thompson.
Not Colin.
Jack Thompson. J.C. Horn. I mean, they have McCaffrey back. That team was pretty good last year, and then McCaffrey got hurt, and the quarterback play wasn't great. If Darnold's better than Bridgewater, which so far he looks, I kind of like Carolina. So I'm going to put my official pick for week 2 as Carolina.
I like it.
All right.
I like that, Mike.
Did you think I was going that route?
I wasn't sure.
Those NFC West teams, I think, are going to they're going to beat each other up, or somebody's, they either beat each other up or somebody's going to lose and fall out of it. You know what I mean? So Arizona is the one on the out right now. Saints, man, that game was terrible.
I gotta wonder how long do they stick with Jameis Winston after this year. I mean, I feel like he's there for this year, but is he there next year, Mike?
And Book you putting in?
I don't know. Maybe they go out and acquire a quarterback in free agency.
Yeah.
Do they try to bring back Teddy Bridgewater after his 1 year in Denver?
I don't know. Who are the free agent quarterbacks after this season,
Off the top of my head, only one I know that can be is Teddy, because he has that opt-out clause in his contract. They can bounce that.
So out in the NFC, this is interesting. The wild cards in the NFC are so scarce. It's like the whole NFC West and Carolina, I guess New Orleans. You putting the Bears in there, and they won. They're 1-1. Are you putting the runner-up in the East? Washington, Philadelphia? There's got to be 3 wild card teams.
There's going to be 3. And
so 2 of them are coming out of the West.
Correct.
And then the third one could come out of the West. But if one of the third team, if the third team and the second or fourth team beat each other up, that opens up a spot for somebody else. Now, do you get a 7-10 team as a wild card this year?
It's possible. The other thing is that don't forget, I talked to you about this about a week ago. Kingsbury, his teams have not done well the last 2 years at the end of the year. They start out well, but they don't finish the year.
They got off to a good start last year. They were exciting. I think they're better defensively this year. They drafted who's the kid, the linebacker they drafted?
They drafted Isaiah Simmons 2 years ago.
And then again this year they drafted.
I
like it because they drafted a linebacker because Hicks wasn't. And I like the kid Rondell Moore. He has been really good.
I like me some Rondell Moore.
I'm pretty sure, though, they drafted another linebacker because they had Reddick. They let him go.
Right.
And they went out and got.
I got to look it up.
Oh, Zaven Collins.
Oh, Collins.
That's who they went and got. Yeah.
The kid from Toledo.
Yes. Yeah. See? I remember some things, even though I woke up before 21 this morning. And they got J.J. Watt.
And you know what?
I like Buda Baker.
You know what Watt's done? He's opened opportunities for other guys. Because I was watching the one telecast with the Vikings game, and they were talking about how they showed, look how Watt's getting double teamed. And they double team because they have to. It's almost like you feel like you have to. And it opens opportunities for the guys to do stuff.
So right now, that's my who's in, who's out after 2 weeks. It's brought to you by BMW of Atlantic City, closer than you think. Online, BMWAtlanticCity.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up. So, Josh, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0-2 teams. Every year, the 0-2 teams are always the story. If you're 0-2, you don't make the playoffs. But Luke Pergandy brought up something in our prop swap conversation this week. The Giants started 0-2 and won the Super Bowl. So which 0-2 team do I think has the best shot of overcoming that 0-2 mark? I think the answer is pretty clear, and I'll tell you who it is coming up next. Sports Pass Live 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. A lot of people messaging through the app today. A lot of people texting in as well. The video stream comments, keep them coming. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Download the free mobile app. Pete Thompson for a Tuesday with Thompson joins me at 5 o'clock tonight. Find out how you can play golf with Pete and I in this year's LPGA Pro-Am. Go to 973ESPN.com to enter right now. I, for one, enjoy that event. If you, even if you're not a golfer, I stink at golf. It's such a fun day. It is fun. It's best ball, so it's not a lot of pressure. And the LPGA Pro is always so good. Like every woman on the tour that I've played with, they're phenomenal. It's amazing to watch them basically hit a perfect shot every single time. So you don't ever have to actually use your shot. You're just out there kind of, hamming it up. So it's a lot of fun. Come on out and play with us. Enter now on our website, 973ESPN.com. This hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet. Take your profit. Find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap today. So if you're prop swapping and you want to follow that blueprint of the Giants going 0-2 and then winning the Super Bowl, there are how many 0-2 teams? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 0-2 teams. There's one team of the 0-2s that make any sense to prop swap, right? And it would be the Indianapolis Colts. They have a Super Bowl level roster. The problem is, how long is Carson Wentz out for? Any other team that is 0-2, I will tell you this right now, they are done. There is not another 0-2 team that will make the playoffs or even come close. The only other team that I think has a shot would be Minnesota. And I'm not buying Minnesota. They're not pulling the wool over my eyes this time around. Their defense stinks. So it's only Indianapolis. Indianapolis is the only 0-2 team. Everyone else, Atlanta, horrible. Detroit, horrible. New York, terrible. They're not horrible, they're terrible. There's a difference. Jacksonville could be the worst team in football, and the Jets are really, really bad. There's no other 0-2 teams. Now, if I was picking a 1-1 team, now there's a lot of 1-1 teams, obviously. But if there's one 1-1 team that stands out above the rest, it would be Seattle, in my opinion. Seattle would be the one, and Buffalo. Seattle and Buffalo and Tennessee. I'm sorry. There's 3. Those 3, I think, have a shot. So if I'm looking for someone to jump in on the prop swap side of things, those are the ones. The 2-0 teams that I think is a good prop swap, you buy their ticket now because they're 2-0 and people are excited about them. I think you go with a team like Arizona. I think you go with a team like Las Vegas because you get a lot of Vegas fans all over the place. So you get a bunch of people getting all jacked up about Vegas. You post that on PropSwap and see people around the country kind of, make offers on that thing. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, a couple other things that I want to dive in on. Why my headset sounds really loud right now? Turn that down. A couple other things I want to get in on here. This Ben Simmons stuff. I want to play some of the Woj stuff that he said today that really kind of puts this thing into some perspective. Now, if you just tuned in, Woj said Simmons does not intend to ever play for the 76ers again. He also said this. So Simmons hoping that other teams get off the bad start. Now, this is what I kind of said, is you're looking for either that scenario or a scenario where there's a team that gets off to a good start and they feel like Ben Simmons could be a difference maker to make them a difference maker in the playoffs. More from Woj. here's the problem, and I do agree with what he said. I think the Sixers are good enough without Ben Simmons in the short term to hang around the playoffs. Now, the East is a lot better. Is just Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, is that trio, and, they got some other pieces too. They're kind of the big three, I guess, for the Sixers, which, Tyrese Maxey is a second-year player. You're asking him to take a big jump. With that in mind, are you good enough to be in the top 4 and then try to trade Ben Simmons to get you from 4 up the ladder? More from Woj. Think about it. When Jimmy Butler got traded, he got traded from a bad Timberwolves team. When James Harden got traded, he got traded from a bad Rockets team. A lot of times, what do? You get a good player who's on a bad team. The Sixers are a good team with a player who doesn't want to be there. Not a lot of precedent on that. Right. So this whole situation is that the Sixers wanted to improve his trade value. They didn't want to just go in with the last game that they saw. That's the problem. So the Sixers now, they are betting on Ben Simmons not wanting to be fined. That's where this is kind of headed. That's an interesting point. They're betting that Simmons, who signs the money deal, 147, 4 more years, $33 million owed this year, that he just simply looks at himself in the mirror and says, I like money too much, and I don't want to lose it. Now, a couple other takes. Let me see if I have enough time here to get this one in from Kendrick Perkins, who really brought an interesting point to the table. Interesting. Basically, here's another player saying, I'm all about you going out and getting yours, but you're handing this selfishly. And that's kind of where I'm at right here. Look, I'm no Ben Simmons hater. You guys know that. But at the same time, look, you got to call him out. He's not handling this right. He's not handling this right at all. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. What does Pete Thompson have to say about the way this is being handled? Plus, PT bound on the Phils after last night's loss to the Baltimore Orioles, and his thoughts on the Eagles' loss to San Francisco. We'll wrap up week 2 with the PT. A Tuesday with Thompson is on the other side, and he'll tell you how you can play golf with us and an LPGA Pro in this year's ShopRite LPGA Pro-Am. To sign up and enter to play, go to our website, 973ESPN.com, right now to enter. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. What's going on, everybody? It is a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT is here. We'll have a little fun tonight as we do on a Tuesday. You know that PT, the Tuesday with Thompson, still not sponsored. Unfortunate for you. How are you, pal?
I'm good. It's despite my best efforts, PT's trying. I knew you had to take a little punch there, a little rabbit punch right off the bat.
I'm just kidding, PT. This is my favorite segment. That's what I said. Of all the, you should see my sheet today of all the things I got to read. And no PT. I was like, oh, PT? Nope, sorry. So, but what is cool is that you and I are going to play together again in the ShopRite LPGA Pro-Am, and we're going to have another listener. We've done this the last couple of years. We didn't do it last year because of COVID, but we are back doing it this year, and we're going to have a listener play with us, and this is pretty cool. It's easy to do. All you have to do is go to our website, 973ESPN.com, to enter to win, and you'll get to play with me, you, and an LPGA Pro, and one of the nicest courses in the area, man.
And all the accoutrements that go with that, you play the great course. There's a great prize pack that goes with it. You get to eat in the players' dining room before and after. I don't think you play up and up about the Wednesday Pro-Am evening party, like the thing that takes place in the evening. Because have you ever gone?
I have not been to the Wednesday night party, no.
Well, that's probably good, because if you were, you might not be on the radio Thursday. It's that much fun.
That's one of the reasons why I don't go. I've heard it is a very good time, and, I have a job, and on Thursday I need to be spry to get ready for, Thursday night football and the Eagles weekend, so I will, that's why I haven't gone. I have to be very, I have responsibilities, Peter.
Is God trying to tell me something? I am supposed to be going on a boat cruise out of Gardner's Basin, and I just went past, Seeking, where the home repair store is, and I'm on the White Horse Pike, and the skies have opened up like, PP, no boat for you.
Just right now?
Just right now.
Wow, how about that? Well, don't know what to tell you.
You know what? Well, you know what this is saying? It's saying don't miss your segment on the StreamYard and never try to make secondary accommodations. Just be there.
There you go. So if you want to play with Pete and I, now I stink. Pete's decent, but it's best ball.
I don't even know if I'm decent at it.
It's best ball, but the best part is the pro hits the best. She never misses. PT just left. Yeah, you should have. The sky is opening up. It is telling you a story. You probably shouldn't have done the phone thing. You probably should have stayed home, stayed dry, and just done the StreamYard. That's what you should have done. And
I hear you. You sound great.
No, there you are. You just popped back in. What are you, on the White Horse Pike?
I am, and the giant windmills apparently affect the cell phone signal, I guess.
All right. Well, there you go. So I was commenting on how impressive it is to watch the female LPGA player. She never misses.
She never misses, whoever it is. She always makes a great turn. You always just see, accurate ball striking. I mean, you and I are just like, where's the green? Oh, God, let us please get somewhere in that, zip code, somewhere in that vicinity. She always seems to hit, her shot. And the funny thing is, I know this – and you're like, oh, God, that's a great shot. You're in awe of the pro shot, and the pro is pissed off. Because they're 2 feet to the right of where they wanted to be.
The only thing you are assured of is that I will pull a shot out of my rear end every once in a while.
You always do.
Yep.
You always do. You're always good for at least one or two.
I will nail a putt from about 40 yards out, or I'll chip one, from some bonkers area. But it's usually one time per 18 that I'll hit one up. But it's always a fun day. So if you want to play, go to our website now, 973ESPN.com, and you can enter. And then on Friday's edition of Happy Hour Friday with the PT, we will announce who will be playing with us this year. So if you want to go enter, do that right now at our website, 973ESPN.com. We have a lot of other things that we want to get into, though, Peter. I don't know that you've heard the news today with this Ben Simmons stuff, but I did.
I just had a brief little bit, and I was listening to you just now before I came on, too, and I saw some stuff on social media about it, so I quickly scanned the headlines. This is his next ultimate line in the sand. he's communicated like, I'm not coming, and nani nani moo moo, and to heck with you, right? I mean, it's like a 5-year-old. Give me a break.
Right. This is the point now where he goes and gets the big gun. All right. Mark Stein this morning says the expectation is that Ben Simmons will not report, but that the team is intent on trying to convince him to play. Well, Simmons reads that and goes right to Woj and says, I never intend to play another game for that franchise. So now the stare down begins. Now, do the Sixers, A, acquiesce and trade him, but for less than market value in their mind, or B, do they let him rot and fine his ass over and over and over and over? He has 4 years left on that contract. What do you do?
Rot and fine his ass over and over and over again.
I love it, PT. I love it. Make him sit there and suffer.
The word petulant comes to mind. Being a petulant child does not get you what you want. And unfortunately in the NBA, we've seen a lot of times where being the petulant child does get you what you want. And I think in this case, I think that the Sixers are saying the right things, but come on, at the end of the day, if the guy is not willing to play ball literally and figuratively, well, then don't reward bad behavior. You could take that out of the parenting handbook. You could take that out of the teaching handbook, and you could certainly take that out of the how to run a pro franchise handbook. All three of those clicked.
Well, here's the problem. One, okay, obviously you have Joel Embiid here, PT. You can't just that's the one issue here, is you can't let his prime years waste away. You know what I mean? That's where the conundrum comes in.
But don't you think that there's some equity build up even with Joel in the sense that he understands, like Joel doesn't want to play with him again, does he? I mean, we don't really know that for sure, but that would be a great question to ask, right? Hey, big fella, we saw you walking around Margate this summer. Nice to see you. By the way, how do you really feel about Ben?
Well, I mean, he did tweet out a little while ago, like 2-3 weeks ago. Let me see if I can quickly find that. But it was something to the effect of, we love Ben, we're a great team. We think we're close. You know what I'm saying? You remember that? Like when he said, I
do. But do you think that he was told to tweet that out? Like, hey, maybe if you tweet this out, this will soften the blow a little bit, or maybe it'll melt the freeze, the chill.
He said, I love playing with Ben. Stats don't lie. He's an amazing player, and we all didn't get the job done. It's on me personally. I hope everyone is back because we know we're good enough to win. So that's what Joel Embiid tweets. So essentially, Ben Simmons looked at that and said, yeah, whoop, whistle and wave because, I don't care that you think we're all back. What you said, that's what gets me, is that this organization, and look, I'm no Ben Simmons hater, but this organization has backed him in every stretch of the imagination. This is total
over and over again, in spite of damning evidence to the contrary. Before the critical game where he passed up the wide open dunk and they just couldn't defend him anymore. And you know what's crazy about this? We're sitting there talking about one night when the wound was still fresh where they didn't overly defend him. They didn't drive the truck over him, back it up and drive it over him again. They just basically, Doc Rivers was asked a pointed question. Can you win with your current point guard? And he answered it. And that is the insult upon all insults of, oh, my God, I'll never play for that team again. What about all the times that Doc Rivers defended him? What about all the times that Doc Rivers did the tongue lashing to the different reporters and said to them, I don't know what the hell you guys are looking at, but we need that guy on the floor.
Right. He's a treasure.
Do you get any build up for that? No, apparently not.
Well, all that. And PT, their actions are saying, we don't want to trade you. We're asking for the moon and stars because we value what you bring to the table. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it sounds like it's a dead issue. This guy does not want to play for the Sixers ever again. He's trying to engineer his exit. And what scares me, and is going to be really interesting to watch, but what scares me is that, you've basically gone into matrimonial homage, right? I mean, when two sides are divorcing and they just can't agree on anything. I get the dog. No, I get the dog. I get the season tickets. No, I get the season tickets, right? That's almost where we are right now. And it's just ugly to watch, and I don't know that there's any easy answer.
Yeah, I agree that I don't know how this stare down ends. I mean, I know that the Sixers can play hardball. They have the 4-year contract. This is where it's different from anything else, Peter, is that You don't see a team that has a 4-year deal. Jimmy Butler, his contract was up. James Harden, his contract was up. Ben Simmons signed a 4-year deal.
Yes, and yet he still has the audacity and the chutzpah, as the folks like to say, that he thinks he can engineer his exit out of Philadelphia for less than value, and that's why we're in this situation. It's fascinating and yet sad and yet disgusting all at the same time. And I'm telling you, I got to feel, there's a lot of times you make fun of me for being like me and Billy are too much of the fans, but I think
no. I don't care that you're too much of a fan. I don't want you to be. I'm not worried that you're too much of a fan. It's pick a side and take that side and dig your heels in the sand, brother.
Oh, I have my side. Sit his ass, find his ass, and let him rot.
I like it. All right, well, then that's essentially where I'm at. If I'm the Eagle, look, I get it. People are like, well, you got to get something for him, and I understand that. But at some point, someone's got to step up and say, you know what? No, that's it. You signed a contract. We're paying you, and that's what it is. I can understand if he was at the end of his deal and he had 1 year left. Okay, fine. That's a different situation. He has 4 years left on that deal.
Right. To me, they hold all the cards. I mean, we've seen so many similar situations too, like, and not for nothing, like, wasn't there one across the street there where a certain football player that now has blonde, spiky hair thought that he was going to engineer his exit because he felt perceived slight, but he still was under contract, right? And lo and behold,
he's on a
after all the
deal.
talking and all, but it's a deal. I mean, he's still in a contract, and he still came back.
Yeah. Oh, listen.
4 years strengthens it even more.
He's owed $33 million this year. Look, if I'm the Sixers, I just see if he squirms. I mean, and then here's my plan is this, PT. He says he doesn't want to play. Fine. I'll fine you. And eventually there's two things that happen here. Either another team says, look, we're a player short. We need a wing defender. We need that great defensive player. What do you want for him? Absence makes the heart grow fonder as teams forget what he did in the playoffs and remember, man, we're a player short. They might start calling you.
Yeah, and that's when it gets to be go time. But again, because it's so hard to, your average Joe and John and Joe, they don't remember too. The money's got to match. It's not just that easy of, oh, great, we need him, and what are you offering? It's not like a 1-for-1. The money's all got to match. The contract has to match, and it's just not as easy as we're done with him. You take him. And that's another thing I think that makes it so difficult. And look, the longer that, he says he's not going to come and play, right? Or he's not coming to training camp. Fine. He's not going to come to media day. Fine. Don't come to any of that stuff. But at what point does he start to sweat is my question. Yep. And I don't think it's until, look, can we get to Thanksgiving without Ben Simmons playing a game in the NBA? I'd be thrilled with that because that means that it's working. What the Sixers were trying to do is working, which is let him rot.
This is what Jay Williams said today. Take a listen to this. So he says, his agent, we will go anywhere but play in Philadelphia. I mean, that's a pretty heavy one right there. We will go anywhere.
Does Joel Embiid hear that and then think like, son of a, I backed you and now what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the way I interpret that.
No, you're absolutely right. Like if I'm Joel Embiid and I'm watching the way this guy's handling this, I'm almost saying, okay, get this guy on the first train out of here. Or if I'm Joel Embiid, I might even say, you know what? Make this guy suffer. Keep him here and fine him to the highest extent for you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Find them all the time. Put stories out there because it is the spin on each side. We saw that happen today. Spin of like, dialogue spin of I'll never play there. Spin of it. Just let them play tennis. You know what I mean? Essentially,
back and forth,
sparring tennis, back and forth. But the end goal is that he's not going to play, and they're not going to give what he wants.
I just hope that they don't panic. That's all. They have him for 4 more years. Fine him, and make him. I say make him put his tail between his legs and come back.
It's the ultimate game of chicken, it's the ultimate game of chicken. And too often in the last, 8, 10, 12 years, the teams have been the one to blink, not the athlete. So let's see.
Yeah, but most of those
somebody
teams
has the fortitude.
Most of those
they
teams
didn't have 4 years.
didn't have 4 years. Exactly. All right,
Yeah,
couple things. Phillies lose to the Orioles last night. Do you care?
I absolutely care. I care so much that I don't care. Like, it just bugs the ever bleepity bleep out of me that this team can't beat a team that's one of the doormats in Major League right now. 23 years, my niece wasn't born or was one. Connie was one with the last time they lost to a team that had 100 losses at this point in the season. It's inexcusable. It's not acceptable. Suarez went out and did what he could. I mean, the guy is trying to, converted a bullpen guy who becomes a starter. And the people that are yelling for Joe Girardi obviously don't see what I saw when I went to the game in person against the Cubs. And what I saw 6 rows away or whatever, looking right into the dugout, is a team that's given up. Not their right fielder. The right fielder has not given up, but everybody else has given up, and I have no patience for that.
How do you tell me you're giving up when you're a game out? You were a game out the other day. You tell me they quit a game out? Come on.
I'm telling you that these guys don't care. They're not passionate. I'm not saying they're giving up. I'm saying they're not passionate. They're not pissed off enough about the losses, and they aren't able to string together any momentum whatsoever. Plus, they can't hit. I'm sorry. I understand that the guy was Baltimore's ace last night, but that's like, give me a break. Like, are you kidding me?
West Virginia.
What did they manage? Three hits last night? That's ridiculous.
WVU, bud.
Yeah, well, there you go. Mountaineers all the way. Go Mountaineers.
Yeah, John Kruk had a lot of alluding to the
he
WVU.
Did give him a shout out. I saw that you had retweeted that.
And then last night, did you watch the Manning cast last night?
Oh, now that's where I was waiting for you to bring this up.
All right. Well,
I loved it. I loved it.
McAfee.
I don't know. Well, yeah, he saved the day. And even Peyton said, all right, next week, you're on again next week, McAfee. In fact, all McAfee all the time.
Yep.
I mean, Peyton is like, it was so great where it reminded me of me and you. Peyton is yelling at Eli like, well, Eli, because you gave such a long answer that nobody gives a damn about, that we missed a chance for him to do another punt play-by-play.
You're right. You're exactly right. Yeah, you gave a 4-minute answer.
Exactly
now we're gonna have to wait till after
We're
gonna have to wait till after the 2-minute warning now because your answer was so long and you didn't say anything in it. And then McAfee.
All he needed to add on was, we are all dumber. We are all dumber for having heard it, and may God have mercy on your soul.
It was good. Brandon Graham out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, man, the heart and soul. I heard Josh say that the other night. I agree. Everybody's repeated that. I mean, he says he's going to be there on the sidelines and get him a pair of pom-poms, but come on. I mean, PG was, like, the last 2 years, he has been an impact and a difference maker, and that's a huge loss. I'm sorry. That's a huge loss.
Well, I mean,
anybody that tries to say it's not.
So that game, are you encouraged that they went toe-to-toe with a team that many people think could be a Super Bowl team, or are you discouraged that, they basically, they could have been up 17-0 in that game?
I'm discouraged about a team that has a 91-yard play and then can't get it in the damn end zone. That's discouraging to me. That is shades and signs of a guy being too cute or too smart for his own good.
I thought he was.
Hopefully he came out and admitted that he was.
Yep.
So if that's the case, maybe he's seen the error of his ways, and there's nothing like 67,000 in the stadium and then another 2 million outside, all just hammering away on you. I mean, it was just stupid. You do a quarterback sneak on first down, you do it on second down, you do it on third down, and then you kick the field goal if you don't get it.
Well, I agree. But I hope, and my takeaway is, I hope he learns from it and says, because the first game, I thought he did a great job of accentuating the positives and utilizing the guys in the best role. Then I thought he was terrible in game 2. And, I think he outthought himself. I think he felt, look, San Francisco scouted us against the Falcons, so I'm going to really try to change the game plan so that they don't see what we've done. And whatever he tried to do, that's not their strengths. What they strength on, even though they saw you, go back to it and see if they can stop it.
And you heard the audio where Mike Quick called the play.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, look, it's one thing if you're running it with Trey Burton, who already had been on the field a lot in that season, like in different sets and stuff, so you really didn't know what was coming. Greg Ward comes off the bench. The popcorn guy was like, hey, Greg Ward's in there. This might be Philly too. You know, I mean, come on.
No, that was it. By the way, Phillies lineup: Herrera, Segura, Harper, Realmuto, Miller, McCutchen, D.D., Galvis, Medina is your starter tonight.
Oh, Funky Cole Medina. Tone Loc. Yeah, well, he's got a chance. He's going to be good.
They're going with the bullpen game. Now, Medina is a guy who has started in the past, so maybe he can try to give you 4.
Sure. I'm going on my boat cruise, whether lightning hits me or not. I'll check it on my phone occasionally, but I'm not giving that team my time. I'm sorry. When I went and saw them in person, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. You know, when you lose the Orioles, I'm not doing it. I'll look at updates on my phone. They have to earn my attention back. Okay. And right now they do not have my attention, regardless of where they sit in the standings.
Eagles have placed Brandon Graham and Brandon Brooks on the injured reserve. They have signed Richard Rodgers to the practice squad. They have also protected Craig James to the practice squad, along with Sue Opeta, Elijah Riley, and Marvin Wilson, and have signed Jack Anderson to the active roster from Buffalo's practice squad. So a bevy of moves that they have
What
made.
do we know about Jack Anderson? I think that's the one that intrigues me. I know where kind of all the other pieces fit. What position does he play?
Jack Anderson. He's an offensive lineman off the Buffalo practice squad.
Oh, okay. Well, you can never have enough of those.
I remember him playing, I believe, at Texas Tech would be my guess. He was
good pull by you.
Yeah, well, those Big 12 guys, I remember when they play my squad, I do a little studying for those games there, PT.
Did your squad lose to Maryland over the weekend? I was thinking of you last weekend.
That was 2-3 weekends ago. We beat Virginia
Tech.
Sorry. Virginia Tech.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you guys beat Virginia Tech because my nephew goes there now. So, yeah, good. Well, Temple still stinks, so there you go.
They're really bad this year. By the way.
Oh, my God, are they bad? Hey, they were so bad that the only benefit they did was they didn't tear up the game for the Eagles, or they didn't tear up the field for the Eagles game the next day.
A couple things. So, PT, we will be playing the Pro-Am. So, if you want to play with us, go to 973ESPN.com and enter. We'll announce the winner on Friday. Now, Peter, we are doing the show live on the 1st at the LPGA. Will you be there?
Friday on the 1st. Let me, I don't see any reason why I can't be there. I won't be there at 2:00, but I certainly can get there when school is finished. So.
All right. Well, we
it also happens to be very close to my house. So, I mean, you got a lot of things going in your direction.
Yep. Well, I wanted to invite, I know it's a day that you enjoy being out and,
the usual location, Mortimer?
I don't know yet. I would imagine so. I don't know where else we would go.
All right.
But we have.
Remember, anytime you put Scooby snacks out, that also lures into PT. It's like leaving breadcrumbs for a bear.
All right, Peter. Happy hour Friday.
Man, you got me all fired up now. I'm going to start barking at these people. Get out of the way. Run this boat. Pull that line. I'm going to be all mad because you got me all ticked off about the stupid Phillies.
Well, happy hour Friday. We will announce who's playing golf with us at the Pro-Am this year. So stick around for that. 4:40 on Friday's edition of the Sports Bash. All right, Peter.
All right, take care, bud. Good talking to you.
There's a Friday edition, a Tuesday edition. It's called Tuesday with Thompson with the Pete Thompson. Sports Bash is brought to you by your Delaware Valley Acura dealers. For great deals on Acura's award-winning lineup, shop online at DelValAcuraDealers.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. When we come back, Rob Motti's here. A lot of moves by the Eagles today, but the big one is Brandon Graham and Brandon Brooks. So how does Rob Motti see them moving forward without those two? And what was his big takeaway from the loss? You might be surprised. Stick around. That is next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Download it in the Apple Store or Google Play. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. Rob Body's appearance on the Sports Match today is brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Rob Body from the Associated Press covers the NFL. The Eagles set to join us right now as the Eagles lose to San Francisco, getting ready for Dallas. We will dive into some of the moves they just made, as well as the Eagles injury reserve list has just grown exponentially from where it was because two big names are on it. So let's dive right into it. Rob Motti joins me now here on the Sports Bash. And as you know, Rob, Brandon Graham out for the season. You just had a conversation with him on the Faith on the Field a couple of weekends ago. He was obviously the heart and soul of this team, Rob. So let's start with that. What is this team losing in the locker room with a player like Brandon Graham no longer on the field?
Man, Mike, Brandon is he's a rare breed. He's one of a kind. He's one of those guys who's always smiling, always joking around. He's the kind of person who walks in a room and you just can't help but feel happier because he really is that guy who always looks to make people around him smile. And his smile's infectious. Whatever he's going through, and we've seen it in the days after this injury, he's putting out positive messages. He's making positive statements. And they're losing a big-time leader who goes out there on the field. And, you know, he's a guy who you hear that cliche term, his motor, high energy. That's BG. He's nonstop all the time, nonstop out there. And he don't stop yapping. We know that. He's one of the best trash talkers in the NFL. And he's always joking around with teammates and media, makes everybody feel good. So they're going to lose a lot. However, knowing him and what he said, he plans to be around. So you may not get him on the field chasing after QBs and forcing some pressures and hurries and sacks. But his teammates are still going to see BG around the building, and he's going to be able to inspire them, encourage them, and uplift them. So that's certainly you're not losing Brandon Graham's presence. You're losing his skill on the field right now.
So how now, in your mind, do we have an answer on how they'll replace him? I mean, he went down in that game. Josh Sweat, 40% of the snaps, more Kerrigan, more Barnett, who will more on him later. Is there a wild card? How do they replace Graham's snaps?
I think right now, I mean, you just gave Josh Sweat that contract, right? So you give him more snaps. You give Ryan Kerrigan more snaps. And Jonathan Gannon, like every DC before him for the past few years, likes to rotate and keep those defensive linemen fresh. And now you're losing a guy in Brandon Graham who was a 50% plus snap guy. So you got to account for that some way. I just anticipate Josh Sweat getting a little bit more action. You sign him to a new contract. You believe in him. You hope in him. You trust in him. You gave him the money. A lot of guaranteed dollars there for Josh Sweat. Go out there, man, and earn the money you just received. But I think Ryan Kerrigan will also see a lot more action. And they're not in a terrible spot depth-wise. Now, you lose Brandon Graham and what he can do on the field. But the fact that you have a Kerrigan, Josh Sweat, and Derek Barnett also in there in that mix where you can use these guys a little bit more, I think the Eagles are okay there. However, there's really no sugarcoating it. It's a big loss, man. It's a major blow to lose Brandon Graham and the other Brandon.
Yes, we'll get into the other Brandon now because Brandon Brooks now, the deal with him is he's not done for the year. He's on the injured reserve. He'll be out for a minimum of 3 games here. So both these guys have a high impact loss, but it seems that both spots, as you just talked about with the defensive end spot, at least they have an option in this right guard spot. They drafted Dickerson. They have Herbig. They like Driscoll. They can get by with one guy hurt on the line. They can't have what happened last year. So what do they do for Brooks?
Yeah, and that's their strength of this team was both lines, and they won in dominant fashion in week 1 because of that strength up front on the O-line and the D-line, and they lost to the Niners because they were outplayed on both lines. But they're in a spot on the O-line where Landon Dickerson was the 37th overall pick. He filled in for Brooks when he went down, and I don't anticipate him losing out here with a full week of practice to Nate Herbig. I fully expect Landon Dickerson to be the guy who goes out there and plays. And when you invest a 37th overall pick in a player like that, it was only a matter of time when he was going to get an opportunity. First injury, and here it's occurred in week 2. Go out there, and it's time to shine, kid, and it's in the bright lights of Monday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys, and he's gonna really be indoctrinated into this rivalry very quickly. But I think they can survive for these few weeks, Mike, with Landon Dickerson, and it's only going to help him and the team because he's going to get more experience. But like you said, you can be okay with one. If they start losing other pieces on that O-line, things are going to unravel quickly for this team. And every time we've talked about the Eagles and how well they can do this year, I've highlighted a healthy offensive line could be the difference between 2 or 3 wins. Well, you just lost one key component of that O-line. I don't think they can afford to lose any more, no matter how much experience the young guys have received in the past years or couple years.
Rob Monty from the Associated Press. Eagles. Now, I think you asked the question to Nick Sirianni, and I, the play call people are going crazy about. It's not so much the play call, so much as the play design. I had a problem with the play design on all 4 of the calls. Like, one guy out, it didn't even look like Hurts knew he was supposed to be out for the pass on that Philly special ripoff play. So all 4 of the plays seemed to not be very well designed in that area. Did you agree with that? And what did he say about that?
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get from him when I asked that question on Monday, Mike, was it appeared to me the pass to Zach Ertz was an only option was Zach Ertz. And then the pass to Greg Ward to Jalen Hurts, he was the only option. And I wanted to follow up, but in the Zoom format, it's hard. It looked like he may have missed the shovel, right, to Zach Ertz. I think
it looked like the old Andy Reid, inside shovel pass.
The one that Carson threw for a pick, but we'll leave that alone this week in the Indianapolis game. We don't have to go down that road. However, his answer to that question was that, he didn't really say otherwise. He said to Greg Ward, whenever you have a receiver, even though he's got experience as a college quarterback, you don't want to give him too many options. And then he kind of explained the read on the Zach Ertz play and how you look for it, and there's a run and whatever that may be. But, I don't want to, and he's saying you get down to that goal line and you just have that one play. I would like to have multiple options because if your first read is covered, and I know Jalen is an athletic quarterback who can make things happen with his legs, but Mike, you're at the freaking 1 yard line, man. Like, I'm thinking about it now. You're at the 1 yard line. You got 4 cracks at it with Jalen Hurts. Run the damn ball in.
Not to mention, Rob, in my mind, and I think your mind, and most people's mind, I have one of the best offensive line in football. By the way, I just gave my left tackle $80 million. Why don't I try to run behind a 6'8", 385-pound man? Or better yet, give him the ball.
Man, he'll be stiff-arming, throwing dudes out of the way like he did on Australia. I don't need you to be cute. I don't need you to recreate Doug Peterson and Nick Foles. I know it's his first home game, and I can't believe, as much as Nick Sirianni understands his audience, and he certainly plays to that audience. And I hate the word pander. I think it's overused, and a lot of guys do it in sports, and I think it's just understanding your audience. I can't believe that Nick Sirianni would call a play because it's his first home game and he wants to win favor with the fans.
I think, and see if you agree, I think he said, look, we haven't shown anything. Last week, we didn't take any shots down the field. So this week, let's show them something that we haven't shown at all. And I think he didn't make the adjustment, right?
Yeah, and he was critical of his play calling immediately after the game, and he didn't like his Philly special light play either, and nobody did. I don't think anybody did at all.
Well, I don't know if you heard quick on the radio broadcast. I mean, he called it out immediately. As soon as the guy lined up on the field, he said, this is a razzle-dazzle.
What's funny is I'm at the game, and I'm listening to the Eagles, and they're 3 plays behind on the radio than while you're there. But I still like to listen to those guys, so it gets kind of confusing. But I didn't realize that he picked that out right away. And if he's immediately, if he's seeing that right there, Mike, in the booth, a guy like D'Amico Ryans, who's a darn good defensive coordinator, finally elevated to that spot. He was able to. They didn't bite. They didn't sniff it out. But I think it was not just we identify first and goal at the 1, but the entire game. I didn't like the play calling. When Jalen Hurts completes 12 passes, only 12 against the secondary missing two starting cornerbacks, that ain't good. There's no way around it. That just is not good.
Rob, in the first game, I gave Sirianni a lot of credit for accentuating the positives, putting the guy, the old Andy Reid. I got to do a better job. I got to put – and this time it was true. He did not do a good job of utilizing, the strengths of what he had. And I hope that he learns from that and does a lot of self-scouting and says, all right, I try to be too cute here. I try to do – he's got young guys. What I like, you're playing San Francisco. This is a tough team. Ertz, Goddard, 4 targets, not enough.
I don't know how the tight ends disappear, and they just lost a linebacker, one of their starting linebackers. Greenlaw wasn't out there in that game. How do you not use your tight ends in this game a little bit more? Devontae Smith, 7 targets, only 2 catches. I thought it was just a poor job all around offensively, and it's extremely disappointing. Like, I thought the 49ers would win this game, but I had it 22-20. Like, I thought the Eagles would be able to move the ball a little bit. And for them to and they shoot themselves in the foot and all these the penalties were the lack of discipline was very disappointing, very discouraging, and all of it adds up to me is this is still a bad football team, and that's why after they demolished the Atlanta Falcons in Week 1, I was like, let's not get too high, because you take each individual game and you look at it. You played a team that wasn't prepared for you in the Atlanta Falcons, that is the bottom of the NFL. They're not a good football team. And now you face one that's much better, that's depleted by injury, and you can't do much against them, and they lose that football game. The Eagles are what right now, 2 weeks in a 17-game season, they're what I thought they were going to be, a very inconsistent up and down team. But I'm very disappointed after that, because Jalen Hurts, you go 77% back down to 52 in that game. The play calling, the lack of – there's just a lot of things they got to clean up. And now it's Dallas week, Mike. It's Dallas week, and I know people hate the Cowboys. I think they're a pretty good football team, and it could get ugly on Monday night.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dallas's offense is going to be a handful for the defense, which has only given up, 23 points the whole season. So we'll see that. I really hope Sirianni makes the adjustments offensively, because, that game could have been a lot different had he just kind of called a different game, I think, anyway. But this Dallas team, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Parsons, I think, on Monday night.
Oh, yeah, and I loved him coming out of the draft, and I would not have been opposed to the Eagles. I know they don't do that. They don't take linebackers, and I would not have been opposed to them staying put and taking Micah Parsons had he been able to get to them at 12 rather than moving up to 10. Very interested to see how they use him, how they deploy him. That's the word that people use nowadays. How you going to use Micah Parsons? And he's such a playmaker, and I think he's only going to get better. They're going to have their hands full. I know you and I will talk about this game a little bit more in depth on Thursday, but this is going to be another tough challenge. And then as you look at the schedule beyond that, right, you look at that schedule, Chiefs. This is the Eagles may not be facing a winnable game till Halloween, Mike.
Yeah, Dallas, Chiefs, Carolina, whose defense is really good. Tampa Bay, at Vegas. At Detroit's a winnable game. They're pretty good.
That's on Halloween, right?
You said Halloween. I thought you said Thanksgiving.
No. Halloween is Detroit, and I think that's. I kind of feel like they'll get a W between now and that game, whether it's Carolina or Tampa overlooking them or coming in on 3 days. Like, I wouldn't put that past the Eagles to find a way there. But these next
if you were to size up who played better against Atlanta, Philadelphia played better against Atlanta than Tampa did.
Yeah, I know. People, I just had a conversation with Matt Ryan about that too. Fate between week 1 and week 2 and what happened and what was the difference for him offensively, and it's going to be tough for this Eagles team the next few weeks, and you're going to learn a lot about Nick Sirianni and how he handled coming off a W, and now how he handles coming off a loss when you're humbled.
Rob Motti is brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Don't forget, Faith on the Field is Saturday at 9 and Sunday at 6:30. And who we got this week?
Well, it's going to be a little bit of a mystery. I'll let you know on Thursday. I've got a couple huge names lined up, but I don't like to announce it till I complete the interview. So they're scheduled for tomorrow, and one of them is a big-time local connection to this Philadelphia Eagles team. So I'll let you know on Thursday, but stay tuned for that.
All right, that's Saturday at 9 and Sunday at 6:30. Rob and Remy do a great job. Faith on the Field. I listened to the Brandon Graham 2 weeks ago. That was really good. Rodney McLeod. Everybody's hurt. You got to get these guys back on the field.
Man, I don't know if I'm a jinx or what, though, Mike, because all of my guys, all the guys I end up doing, Faith on the Field or any events with, Carson, he's gone. Jordan Hicks, he's gone. Trey Burton, he's gone. Ben Simmons wasn't a Faith on the Field. I had to sit down with Ben Simmons about a year and a half ago. Look what transpired with him today. And I'll tell you what, if I'm texting you for an interview, guys, I'm not answering my text. I think there's something to the Rob Motti jinx.
Ooh, Rob Motti, Associated Press. We'll be back on Thursday here on the Sports Bash. All right, Rob, take care, man.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, bud.
There goes Rob Motti, and he joins us Tuesdays and Thursdays here, thanks to Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, coming up, it's game night. Josh has game night tonight, and he'll talk with 97.3 ESPN.com Sixers contributor and Sports Illustrated Sixers writer, Kevin McCormick, as you heard Rob allude to. Look what happened to Ben Simmons today. It's been a great start to the NFL season, and it's only getting better at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. DraftKings is kicking off another week of action by giving all new customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $1 on any football game this week and receive $150 in free bets instantly, no matter what. And this football season, all customers can swing big with DraftKings same-game parlays. Same-game parlays allow you to combine multiple bets for a bigger payout. This week, place a same-game parlay on any NFL game, and you will be credited up to $25 if your bet loses. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. And the best part is you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use my promo code 973 to receive $150 in free bets instantly when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's my promo code 973 to get $150 in free bets instantly this week at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey only, new customers only, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We will wrap up today's show coming up next here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, get ready to wrap up the show here. Don't forget, coming up next, game night, Kevin McCormick, our Sixers contributor. He will talk to Josh a little bit more about this whole Ben Simmons mess, which, quite frankly, is now a absolute mess. He went to Woj and basically took his ball and went home and said, I'm not showing up, and I never intend on playing for them again. Couple text messages. Mike, we better hear an apology from Doc Rivers, Danny Green, and Joel Embiid because those guys attacked the fans for criticizing Simmons. They made every excuse for this guy, and now he's turning on them. Well, maybe. I don't think they owe anybody an apology, quite frankly. I think for the most part, Doc Rivers backed his guy all the way through. And Ben Simmons is the one that owes the apology. Ben Simmons is the guy who needs to say to his teammates, hey, I'm sorry for bailing on you. His teammates did what they're supposed to do. They backed their teammate. The guy that you should be asking the apology from is Ben Simmons, not Joel Embiid, Doc Rivers, and Danny Green. They were doing what they're supposed to do. Hey, this guy's on our team. You guys don't like him. He helps us win games. I have no problem with them backing their teammate. The guy who needs the apology is, hey, I bailed on you guys. I'm sorry. That's how we'll end tonight's show. Oh, boy. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, you have a chance to play golf with Pete and I in the ShopRite LPGA Pro-Am. It's easy to do. Just go to our website, 973ESPN.com. All the directions on how to enter are on our website, 973ESPN.com. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. And don't forget, busy weekend, college football, Notre Dame and Wisconsin on Saturday. We have that for you here. Plus West Virginia and Oklahoma, two good college football games. Then a triple header on Sunday, Chargers, Chiefs, Bucks, Rams, Packers, Niners, and then the Eagles on Monday night. We're your home for football, 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, I'll be back tomorrow live right here on the Sports Bash. Have a great night, everybody.